Good morning, everybody. Actually, so I do not consider our meeting something giving teaching about the Dharma. This I consider rather sort of academic sort of discussion. Right? So, if I consider this is teaching, then I should wear a yellow robe. That's the bhikshus or monks of sort of official dress. Like that. So the reason whether believer or non-believer believe this religion, that religion, no matter, some ideas from these Nalanda masters of teaching. It's something useful. I think basically, I usually telling the Buddha Dharma, you see, from level, from human being or ordinary sentient beings level, and then how to improve yourself. And then ultimate goal is as a Teatha, Gade, Parasamgade, Buddhisoha. Buddhisoha means Buddhahood. So that's target. So Buddhahood will not achieve through prayer, but through Gade, Paragade, Parasamgade, in Tibetan, Kasota, Droshik, Songshik, Droshik. And the Gusijari, Songshi, Parado Songshi, Parado Yangdabo Songshi, Changju to Shitsu, Sati, Tingo did the days, Teata said, did the days. That are the Shirin Narolia, Tungni Go Song, and Tusun Juba Sanja Tamjajan, Shiri Pardo Chimbala, and Mozo Sanja race, just soon, down a condition in Sanja or Reslona, did the days. Any Tomar, any Tekosunga on the Shavinani. Tarva Tunic, lost Jumma, but give a good solemn tolerate. That is taking on the Chavina, Chanju some Toma Gesona, Jumma, Jimmy Chanju some Gesona, Chanson solemn chavare, Gades are Tangutri. Then Gades, Nibadi, that Namji Tunigi, that Chanju some Dumanin, Namji Tunig, Lotti. Shirok taught the Chen younger by Indusane, that don't you do a Shirolia, any Gumjung Yamung Jebe Kudulia, any Jolam Tawari, Gate, Satsha. That then, don't you Gumjung Shirok Jeni, that Tadum Mutini, Gomidusane, Nina, Ten and Numni, any tuning Muslim Tom and Nicola, Paragade Sage. And part of the songs, Jigdel and Deva, Soji Sale, Pagwe, part of the songs. Then, Parasanga de Suzane, any Tungsin, Gombe, Gomlam, Dene, any Serju Ringi journey, Tar, any Buddha Soha, Saturday. Said, yeah, this you uses.
So, as the mantra was recited, the Heart Sutta mantra recited by the singer here, which states, Tyatha Om Gade Gade Para Samgade Bodhi Soha. So it began by saying Tyatha. This is, the meaning is, here is thus. Gade is go. Para Gade goes utterly beyond. Go beyond. Para Sangate, go utterly beyond, and Bodhisoha, establish your enlightenment or establish your awakening. So when that is said, the manner in which this mantra was said, immediately before that, there's a mention that all the Buddhas of the three times, they traverse along this path through this entrance of this, the path of the wisdom of emptiness. So then the question arises, how does one have to go through this, traverse this path towards enlightenment by following this entrance of the perfection of wisdom? Then the next word is said, gati. So there, the first gati, it indicates the path of accumulation, the first entrance, the path of accumulation. So the measure by which one is said to have reached that level, they enter through this level, is in terms of the common path, it is through generating this renunciation, a genuine renunciation, feeling that I must achieve the enlightenment. So whereas in the parlance of the Mahayana practitioner, someone who seeks to achieve total Buddhahood or enlightenment, the motivating, the driving forces, the bodhicitta, the innate desire to become enlightened, Buddhahood, to benefit all sentient beings. The moment you achieve this state of the bodhicitta in a very non-superficial or in a very spontaneous way, you enter through the first gati. Then once you have this, then you are to go further to the next gati, which symbolizes the second path, the path of preparation. So there, the distinguishing feature of this path is that not only this intense altruistic bodhicitta, intense altruistic the wish to help the beings, but that must be accompanied by the wisdom. So this wisdom, the wisdom to see the reality as it is, this wisdom, it is of three levels, and one which is known as the wisdom derived through the familiarization or the meditation. Once you reach that level, then you are upgraded from the first gati, the path of accumulation, to the second gati, the path of preparation. So once you reach that second level, then you are to again upgrade to be upgraded to the third one, paragati, the path of seeing, paragati. So when you reach that, again the distinguishing feature for that is that the wisdom of emptiness which you have experienced earlier, that must be upgraded from the conceptual experience to the non-dual experience, where the experience of duality is totally dissolved, you experience the non-dual experience of emptiness. So at that point, you have transcended the state of the ordinary beings, and then you reach to the next one, parasangati, which is the fourth one, referred to as the path of the meditation. So when you reach that level, it is through further habituation in this experience of the non-dual wisdom of emptiness that you traverse to the 10 bhumis, 10 bodhisattva bhumis, and then finally it reaches the bodhisattva, the full awakening or the enlightenment, which is indicated by the last word, which is bodhisattva.
Oh, yeah. So my point is, you see, from this level, how to improve yourself. The most of major religion, you see, creator, the Dharma religion, come from there. The creator, right from the beginning, as a creator, God. So we cannot become God. Simply, you see, we eventually reach God's place. That's the heaven. So Buddhism, so Buddha himself, previously ordinary sentient being, and eventually, step by step, then gradually he reach enlightenment. So the very reason how we become sort of the Buddha, because our subtle mind, clear light. Sometimes Buddhists call Buddha nature, Tathagata Garva. And then all, the destructive emotion based on wrong view. Wrong view. Any wrong view, no solid basis. So the other hand, with the right view, is just opposite. So right view have solid reasons. So because solid reasons, we can develop further. Firstly, we can develop conviction, then familiarize. So this strength of the right view, decade by decade, day by day, I don't know. Decade by decade, you see, increasing. So the right view, they say more right view increase, the wrong view decrease. That's the logical sort of explanation. So in any way, since the many years, when I give some teaching, firstly,
so during any discourse which I'm involved with, I make the distinction between the two things. The first one is to introduce the main teachings of the Buddha, followed by the main instructions, the instructions of the main body of the Buddha's teachings.
According to my own experience, as I mentioned yesterday, when I was young, you see, not much interest about Buddha Dharma, because I do not know. You see, so very lazy student. Then gradually, some knowledge about Buddha Dharma, that brings enthusiasm. Then study, and also practice. So it is very important. Otherwise, you see, we just carry the Buddha Dharma just a traditional way. Not much explanation. So therefore, I think that Thurum Nishu Godoto are and Nyangun Sungro Sash. Tabachua. Yamlebere, Kong Rimin Nangere. To do minute to Kadulia, come good to Adam and Wasaki Arisha. Nimachone, to do Jimmy Tabini Meta, Yang Low Terry, Jugutsulu. But Zochimbache, Yang Chick, Nima Gilu, Jitishun, Thomas, that to get change. Yamshinangage. Yang sus de nyang sungro and Gilu Lamare, the Yang Ningma Saja to Sama Chengachik. Not the Yito, the chatting one at Chanegata, the Jimmy, Tambazing, Kitchen Tampan, Dizure, Samajinga Ishi. Anyone, the Shaka in the Zaneco, Shung Ramjam, Ken Sungi in the Zane, go shut them around the Vishtoa. Saturday in the Zane, or Nyangu Sungro. Temper Jizen consult Gazan says Chedwa. That in a does Gatcher Dambre, does Gatcher Danche. Any Pindu Juding Shunos of what desert idea, Temper Jizen Resha. Temper G want to change Song Shavachi. She really partnership with Dodo Wushash and Jumden Degi, the Dinshin Don Shin Chani, Shivuji, Yonda, another Mare. This is Lada Molia Song Shavach, ready in a Jiungutone, got temper Jizen Song Shavarisha. That Judica did. You did Yidi Kansa Cherawachilla. Lada Merlumda, the Niggy, any sonum to Tusu Mending a Chilia, any Jumden there, that Chodu, the Kasha, any Galong number Tagatone. Nas, chocolate in the Sungsha Yari. And Mother Shen, Manche, Jumden, me number Gelongi, any number T, member church, anything go double number Shane, Sungsha. You just someone did it. That the Gasachi, Chogi, you did resume that Pachi Yari Mother Shen, Tingo number Shane Sungdo. They can't stop presented. So did he do that? You did Hamangu, she was young, I would do it. At the dinner, that the son of Minting, that there's a Mungu, she was young, into that, any round and come them about the Savage and the Sung Shavachigi, you did house of Mungu, she was any Merson Yamlin Chayin do, any 기름이 다 천체 참매기 난죠. 애니 기름도 조림은 난죠. 제가 하고 조림은 난죠. 냠슬레베 그돌이야. 잠면자와 룽근 나다면자와 감근 나다면자와 예배 인도산에 애니 규주소서 나로래야. 저런 틀리를 나도 nen다. 맨다 송도. 그 강사 거제 다 세워졌다. 자, 디네 인도산에 어다 년그 다 숨기 제손장에 내한테 때버 지전다 강사 거제 니체. 다 때버 지전스럽게 숨진디 있더래. 변나 숨지 주송서로. 다가는 식변나 착진적 계승서로. 다 드르테디 때버 지전서다. 창물로 다야지로다. 죄송. 다 변나 사제 샤샤나 애니 람제 조 제도를 때버지리 규순 제도를 때버지리 어다 디다 강사 거제리 비워바네 마 비워발이야 아니 제도 가서다 다 아니 다음에 한번 드스데 마 셰식 된데 돈에 마다 용도 버지리도 사운드 버샤샤네 개부 인정 부디다 콜로도 버샤샤나 토마 루이버 되네 지부버 되네 나보버 지낸다 대접에는 루이벨룩 아니 나보벨룩 아니 지불 한것이니 매다매다 되용도 강사 거제도 같이 세진이 인도산에 다 만족 다 디기 뭐는 수준의 샤 강사 거제도 때버 지전세네 다 견적 컨디션도 슬로이나 별이야 패치 강사 거제도 조를 제도아 상하를 당도 쉬우시체 때버 지전체 송셰의 슝디디 시랑 토나메가 소차 아니 그리 타녀 조당 거라 셰슈도 주주스잖니 때버 지전 슝디디 셰슈 샤바차 강사 거전 그 상하 처디디 아니 주주 조냐면시야 아니 좀더벌레 가지 또 가서래 criticize 슈인도 거래 좀더 말이야 좀더 자진주의 사무도주 냠린 신뢰 주세니 냠린 스테이지 아시도 자진주의 그 전주 섬도 친주 냠린을 하고 지기 다 냠린 가려래 사무도주 루루 약세나 마찬가지로 사무 오면 다 송셔 다들 냠린 틀을 송야로 될을 하고 냠린 시야 가려요 아니 참주들 데레 막 아니 퍼진 게 슝도 이디 자신 주유세네 제 daksa 동양 저 파샤 아니 고불루드네 마 뒤도 우메 따와 고송셔버지디 사무때 주유세네 daksa 동양 저 파샤 그봐 아니 어떠람배 당마배 뭐 진진 타타디 아니 냠는 신을 줄이야 그랬어 나도 먹어 보게디 좀더 말이야 좀더 쉬어요는 아직 근데 신경이다 자신주의 서주성 순거를 데려다가 냠는 가야 돼서 아니 사무도지 우메다고 순거 데려다가 냠는 가야 돼 냠는 신뢰지 상월로 전주고 섬도 독립다고 실을 샤베도는 냠는 쪽으로 뒷면은 가르쳐 오려면 그래서 확 거면서 못 이걸려도 와 저로 틀릴 거야 못 이걸려도 와 데려다가 나로 치료도 돼 다 의사들 배지 참는 내가 가고래마다 시 패질 밀름的这个的人动物的패질 포화다 종주들 제 무디벌 도와 사실은 그 지난 통을 쓰거든 죄송 근데 인도산에 어떤 아주 별이야 되는 이 투쇼신샤 삼 정결 같아 상하 최대 쇼직의 자체부지 tempo 지적이 도단디 샤라 토나메가 소차 디gembe 아니 강사 거전 시대는 아니 산지 좀 된데 왜 주문 대지시도根据된주 부디디 이게 배 아주 미백 같이체 쇼직 자체부 통퇴하시도가 디파로 루스제 이 친주 스제 다도 스타야지 에디 산지 베쳐디 semlo trochene gokte slow yundu manne ta tunge pangbe chaye yende chi sha indusane semlo pobaleyaji kam dishini wu sha indusane semlo pobaleyaji oro semlo pobale trolebe toni nyamne chiaji re modo shena kuni nyamne chiaji re medo manzu peleya trocheyagi dezu tola tami nanda nange sungede yujire 당연하다 지 배전 되게 싫다 통야래 근데 럼림 슝진의 뭔가 통야래 어디 텐트 자체부지 민도가 자들이 아니 랑 거여와 안다 감 캠부디 감 가발이야 캠부지가 랑 거여배 그만 중에 찬이 생각 말이니스 감 가배 뭐게 검부지기 캠부지아래 아니 총수식네 아니 캠부지아가 미지 용인 버래 아니 미디 나 캠부지하고 있어 쉬우래 가서 또 공부대 캠부지아가 용버래 아니 캠부 쉬우야 말해 아니 캠부 쉽지 대디어래 그래서 아니 아다 캠부지아가 용인 미디기 나 캠부지아가 자고 있어 아니 캠부 가야 그래서 근데 가서 다 기스티브래 아니 쉽지디기 캠부터리 쉬우메스 캠부 보모를 신나고가 태송스러워 다 취소하다 라마 태워쳐버다 군주승 태워쳐버 군주승 멋진거 말해 이네 군주승 태워쳐버다 슬러 아니 디마치는 결혼 야란 줄다 슬러도 괜찮으시죠 나한테 직선은 섬주 망자와 인주 제가 견통 거래 텐트 말이 사제가 쳐야지 그다음에 사실이 인도산에 난저 대체디 보모를 신나 그게 저서로 저러 식도 가게 맞고 근데 단저도 로도는 시행에서는 있는 연주 동에 이름아 셰셰 연도 냐만 다른 사람 안 되면 벽아 말이야다 가서 먼저 변수가 뭐게 먼저 토마한테 지 베지티아에 된 고추지 고도도 말이 나 작을 보지你们整个土话来说，每个什么意思啊？每个样的可说能学的每个可说我就的提示的什么意思？哎，你强求什么？让进这个跟先进这个原来都是说呢，修这都是什么修这判啥？搞修种是的。第一声音的样子什么意思啊？아니 내가 걸선 것도 차하라는 차주면도 장하라는 장주면도 엔 당체 좀 멋진 사람. 아도스 좋지.
In the early 20th century, there was one great Tibetan master by the name Nyingwe Sungrab, and he is such a non-sectarian, a great master. Very non-sectarian, although he was from the Gelug tradition, but he studied the texts and the teachings of all the various traditions, Sakya, Kakyu, Nyingma, all, and a great practitioner of all these traditions, and also the one who taught all these traditions equally to his students. And then in the Nyingma tradition, there was one great teacher, Thubten Gyatso, and his student, Tsulu. They were all very non-sectarian. They learn the texts and the teachings from all the different traditions, and likewise they propagate all the teachings equally. So these are all the great sources of inspiration for us. And I really wholeheartedly feel great admiration in all these great teachers. And this I see that this is how we should follow the Buddha Dharma. And then one thing that we need to keep in mind is that the Buddhism can be seen in two lights. One in the context of the mainstream Buddhism, and the other in the context of specifically meant for individual practitioner. So the two lights. So from this point of view, this is how Nyingwe Sungrab, the great scholar and the great practitioner, he classifies or he reads Buddhism into these two ways. And whereas keeping this intact, I see I add a little bit to this, which is that the main texts written by the 17 Nalanda Pandits, these I put them in the category of the mainstream Buddhism. Whereas there are other texts individual texts meant for the individual practitioners. So these can be classified in the second category. Likewise, in Buddhism, we can see the whole Buddhism into two streams. One is the Sutra, and the one is Tantra. And Sutra, generally speaking, we can see them more in light of the mainstream, the Buddhist teachings. And whereas the Tantra, we see that the same teacher, the Buddha Shakyamuni, oftentimes he manifested himself in the form of the deities, not in the form of the monk's form, but in the form of deities. And then he taught the various tantras in accordance with the predispositions and the imprints of the individual practitioners, not necessarily meant as the mainstream the teachings of the Buddha. So there, it is because that there are numerous disciples having different mental propensities and so forth, the tantric teachings and the deities associated with the tantric teachings, we see that there are multiple, there's numerous deities of the associated with the tantric teachings. And then, again in Tantra, there is what is known as the practices of Tantra divided into the practice with sign, the practice without sign, pertaining to the lower Tantric schools, and the generation stage practice and the completion stage practice pertaining to the highest Yoga Tantra. So, and then particularly in the context of the great completion or the completion stage practice, there's a practice of the drops, the energy, the channels, and so forth, and then particularly the applying the focal, the meditation on the vital parts of the body, parts of the body, the channels and so forth. And from these we see that these are clearly meant for the individual practice, not necessarily as the mainstream Buddhism. And then say there are all these many texts like the 13 great texts and the 18 great texts, which are being studied by the Sakya tradition and other traditions. So they all can be classified in the mainstream Buddhist teachings. And then in the context of Sakya tradition, there's what is known as the Lamdya practice, and which is primarily associated with the deity Ke Dorji, He Vajra. And we clearly see that these are all taught in conjunction with the individual practitioners' propensities and dispositions and so forth. And then the Guya Samaja Tantra, likewise. And then in the context of the Chakrasamvara teachings, there are the great saints like Luyapa, Tilpupa, Napupa. We see that you study these texts, we can clearly see that all these teachings, the tantric teachings, they are just specifically meant for the individual practitioners, not necessarily as the mainstream teachings. And then from this, I see that in Tibet, at one point, there's the inclination or the emphasis happened to be tilted more towards the teachings meant for the individual, contextual individual person, not for the mainstream Buddhism. So this, I think, is a little the demerit or the limitation of the practice which became prevalent in Tibet. And then in Tibet, there's also, at one point, there's the classification of Buddhism into two. One meant for intellectual learning, intellectual Dharma, and the other one is the practice Dharma, indicating as though like the Dharma can be just for the intellectual built-up, and the other as a concrete Dharma practice. This is a total misconception. And then when you classify the Buddhism in these two categories, then how do people go about doing that is that what is meant for the mainstream Dharma, that is put under the category of the intellectual build-up, enriching the intellectual skills, not necessary for the practice. Whereas all the tantric teachings, people put them in the category of the practice-oriented Dharma. And I personally, there was one great Tibetan master by the name Dromdumba, and I personally have a little uneasiness towards him, although he was a great teacher, great practitioner, but for a little reservation towards the statement that he made, that classifying the Buddhism, where he classified Buddhism into three categories. One is meant for the vast category, vast practice belonging to the category of the vastness. Number one. Number two is the practice category.
Yesterday, already mentioned Maitreya, Bodhisattva, then Arya Asanga, Bosubandh, or that lineage.
So all these teachers, Maitreya, Asanga, Vasubandhu, they all fall in this category of the lineage of the vastness. Then he brought a second classification, which is the lineage of the profound. Lineage of the profound, where all the teachings on the middle way philosophy, emptiness, they all were put under this category. And third, he classified that as the lineage of the practice. Lineage of practice, indicating as though like giving the impression as though like there is something which is different as the practice, which holds the hardcore of the old teachings of Buddha, and whereas the first two, they are more for intellectual built-up and so forth. So there, say the first category, which is for the vastness, the lineage of the vast. So there, the sixth practice of the six perfections and the teachings given by the Maitreya Buddha, the Maitreya Bodhisattva, and then all about the practice of bodhicittas, they fall under this category. And the second one, which is the lineage of the profound. So there is the Nagarjuna's teachings. All these Nagarjuna's teachings, they were put under this category. And the third one is the practice, what actually brings about transformation, what actually is to be practiced. So there, I feel having a little reservation against Dumdumba for classifying this. And then say, for example, all the tantric teachings, they fall under this practice. And if you go into the tantric practice, like what was mentioned earlier, the practice pertaining to the meditative, the penetration into the vital parts of the body, of the channels, the drops, and so forth, and likewise the dream yoga, and the psychic heat yoga, and the transference of consciousness yoga, and so forth. All these practices, we see that mentioned in Tantra is something unique of Buddhism. These are something very commonly practiced by the classical Indian traditions, which predates the Buddha, and besides the clear light practice.
Oh, one occasion, many years ago, in Gorakhpur, I met some sadhus, the tantric practitioner. There are many common things. So once my teacher, the Kunulama Rinpoche, he told me the demarcation way. No. Demarcation. Buddhist Tantrayana, Hindu Tantrayana is, you see, the mandala, and you see these different deities, even different chakras, these are more or less common. You cannot make distinction. The distinction, say, where is a certain mandala, certain deities, you see, their whole concept based on Sunyata. That is Buddhist Tantrayana. So that, then Jingoma Takasha in the Zane, Chambani Shashi Tawan, Sharkiko, Yanda Punshi Tawan, Hoyoko, Sujukanshi Tawan, Nuduko Sen, Dosen, Ganda Chanjo Sudun the Deni, Sheta Didita, Sanjebe, Gandata Sangak Churchyari, Sangak Jingo Churchyari. Ganda Didi, any Chanjo Sudun the Ma Deni Shetaro, Ganda Hatch Jeshinjalia, almost most of the South of Mosubash, the Hang Sat, in Murtani, Takiari, Katu in the Tuni Gungdoa. Gomje Tuni, any Jagagi, when a chigita, Judo Chambudin, Jik, Samzambe, Suzini Dung Tawa, Gomnim, Titone, Hainaja, Yungiari, ready in a ya any sang dogbats on the level Kadula, Tawa, Nartia Pearl, any Minga Tayung, Mado. Turning when a caso money to a mebeta, Tawati, Perdratch. Yam Young Tene, you may be saying Yam King to Sane, or that in the Chi Yare. Some Chiri, Usim with Tawat and the Yoder, Kangdaria, Tawat and the Komia Mana, Takomia Yamari. And almost abolished the sort of abolished to Hansen Deva, the Haitish or Condition in a Tisha Yordi, that did on that day, Hamakoche. And us a Nagarish Devche, Lexa Garish, Tratala Matarish Devche, that did be Chilush just on Chokari. Any chance saja any dojolo rangi bless the booter na sitter na jadati chilur style ke chata. Shishor wete ka.
So in the context of the Buddhist Tantra, there is even the depictions, the visualizations of the various mandalas with the 4 doors, each of these 4 doors symbolizing the purification within oneself, and so forth. And we see that all these, even the visualization practices, they're somehow connected with the practice of the 37 paths to enlightenment. So this is something which is so unique of Buddhism. And otherwise, and on top of that, whenever you start any practice of any sadhana practice of the Buddhist Tantra, it starts with this, the basic, the recitation of the mantra, Om, the Swabhava, Sambhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Sambhava Shuddha Hang. So there, so the meaning has at the core of this, the meaning has the meaning of the emptiness or the ultimate reality. So whether you ascribe this emptiness or ultimate reality pertaining to the Chittamattara philosophy, Madhyamika philosophy, or according to Madhyamika philosophy, so there are some saints whose practice is grounded on the wisdom of the emptiness according to Chittamattara school, but as the practitioner advances in the practice and eventually gets to a very advanced level of the practice, this experience of the emptiness according to Chittamattara invariably is going to be upgraded to the experience of emptiness according to Madhyamika school. Madhyamika school, which posits the things existing purely through mental designation. And then that is purely on the basis of one's personal experience of the clear light, the innate clear light. Whereas on the contrary, without the experience of emptiness, then how can one possibly meditate or do the visualization of the various deities? So without that, then even if you recite this mantra, which mentions about the emptiness, Om Swambhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Sambhava Shuddha Hang. So even if you say this, there is no blessing at all there, then the whole visualization practice of Tantra becomes baseless. And then some people, they think that simply, even without the wisdom of emptiness involved, and reciting this mantra, thinking that they will get such a great blessing from these deities. This is all not true. And then in the context of the Sakya, say there are the chant leaders who initiate this the congregational prayers, and then starting with all these rest of the mantras, and then playing the various musical instruments to invoke this experience. But if that is done without experience of emptiness, then there's no really blessings as such. It's just display. So am I correct? This is what I would like to seek the opinion of the Venerable Rinpoche here. So this is...
Of course, Sajja Lama, I think highest sort of Lama in Tibetan a tradition. So I think too bold, a little sort of criticism. I think it's very tambijari. Shaza kala tamye me sachi. Shaza kala tamye me.
So there is a Tibetan saying which says that someone who really cares about you, loves you, from that person's mouth, you won't hear nice words.
It is important. Someone says something wrong, still say, "Oh yes, of course." Then this is not a matter of one individual, but matter of Buddha Dharma. So Buddha Dharma itself, I think, based very sound reasons. But due to lack of knowledge, Buddhism also becomes something like superstitions. It is quite a pity. Oh.
So this remaining part of the translation. So it says that the textual sources of Buddhism, like the direct translations of the Buddha's teachings, Kangyur, and the translations of the commentaries by the Indian masters, Tengyur. So if you study this, we see that you will see it is like an eye-opening for you to see the vast reality. And then you study the Nirodha, the truth of the cessation of the miseries. And then you study the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha nature. On the basis of these vast texts, you will truly gain an incredibly profound conviction in the efficacy of all these teachings. Then on the contrary, not being exposed to
so
these...
So this is a teaching, Nirodha, concept of Nirodha, or moksha. You get the feeling, oh, there is a real possibility to overcome all suffering, eliminate all sort of fundamental source of suffering. Then Buddhahood, because of Tathagata Garbha here, so that gives you full of enthusiasm. If you see threat, or unless you pay respect to Lama, you go hell. Fear.
So then, on this basis, this is how we should gain conviction in the teaching of the Buddha. On the contrary, Buddhism should not be tilted towards creating fear in someone else. For example, there are the treatises known as the Lamrim. And if you really study that as compared to the commentaries by the Indian masters and the actual teachings of the Buddha, so these teachings of the Lamrim, they become much smaller. And so there was one, in fact, there is the narrative. There was the abbot, it is one place in Tibet, Kamgawa. So there was one abbot of the monastery and the attendant, and a visitor came to seek audience with the abbot. It so happened that the abbot was absent. And then the attendant said that the abbot is not here. And the visitor said, I must seek his blessings. I have things to, you have to see him. And the attendant said that, no, he's not here. And then he asked us, where did he go? And then the attendant said that our abbot went to create fear in the minds of the old men and old women. So there, what he meant was that the abbot goes to give teachings to the old folks, and then they teach about, hey, you should have a devotion to the guru, you should have devotion to the three jewels. If you don't do that, you will go to hell. And the old men and women, they have such a fear in the mind, and this is what he meant. So it should not be like this. It should be, so perhaps these kind of very skeptical thinking, maybe it is me overthinking about these things, but we should know how to really practice the Buddha Dharma. And Buddha Dharma should not become a set of a teaching to create fear in the old men and women. And at one point in Dharamsala, that was many years ago in a Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, when the teachings started to be initiated for the public. So there was a friend of His Holiness, one Indian person, and then he reported to His Holiness that the first few days he went there and the teaching was just amazing. So he went there, it was so effective. It leaves such an effect. The change, transformation in me. It talked about the bodhicitta. It talked about the demerits of cherishing oneself. It talked about the benefit of cherishing others. It's amazingly a great teaching about altruism. It simply transformed my mind. And then the third day I went there, it talked about the hell. So the hell, hot hells, the cold hells. Hot hells are too hot that I cannot bear it. Cold hells are too cold that I cannot bear it. So I felt so tired and I stopped going to the class. So it should not become like this.
So, according to my own experience, you see, Buddha Dharma, you see, the motivation or start practice of Buddha Dharma seriously, you see, full of enthusiasm, full of sort of hopes already, nirvana, bodhicitta, all this, then that with sort of optimism brings enthusiasm practice. That's the proper way, not out of fear. Like that. So now, now the Kasa the shell chodita. Janida, so it is, I feel it is important, you see, to know the Buddha's or historical Buddha's own teaching. Sometimes we not much pay attention. So the first Dharma wheel, he taught Four Noble Truths. Tempa Shidima Shiltsaro Dandu Kaju Midaso Chududle.
The teaching of the Four Noble Truths, when you go into greater detail, then it talks about the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths.
Mida Tunge Tong Dame Shi, Du Gunjung Rapti Tien Shi, Gokpa Shiwa Tianong Ninjung Shi, Lam Riba Druba Ninji Shi. That Denshi Soso the Cashu Shi Shen. That did it Shivujik did one Nagashabatua. Daniel Denshi, Midasu Ruma Shay in the Sane, Tao Charagi Cabale, Midasu Ruma Deshetari. 잘하게 개발하다 전부 입었어도. 그래서 가다가서다 락베 원도전 시행일자네 미다고 써야 돼. 락베 미다고 삼다오래. 다디 남주 로도 남식거도 치워 미다고 써야 돼. 됐다 됐어. 아니 강 미다고 했을라나? 단적을 류된 상부터 다 지구 떠니기 미다고 했신 자인들은 단적다 치워 미다고도 될래서. 야. 다디네 미다 동에 다 가다 집에 다니 지대 인도전에 천디 낭신 도야 돼 될래 용도 와. 엔드네 다 요근중 잡기 겐신에 두스마 상당연도 아니 묘mombe 상황도 여버 뜻이도 다 대화매도 저 상으로 거인도전에 치매 낭신 도야 돼 될래 용도 와. 다 디디 신앙꾼이 천디 낭신 도야 돼 치매 낭신 도야 매매체 Gokden said, Gokden's Kalishre, Gokwa, Shiwa, Danum, Minjungs. When the Tanasam Jolly Doa. Nyabu gave it of ye, Bangja, a lot of Gemirundu Chayag, or the Nijigita, Yanda Tobilis and Tella, Chawas Jenny, Gokden the Tishik Doa. Garanzo Mindibu Dungedi Yonyagi, do tea. 녀부께베 또지 그게 림베게 봤다 방해하기 된대기 아니 자외 연대 직신의 토빈도산에 따들로 꽉된스도 녀부께베 또지 방적 강요로 뭐지 그 녀부디 바까니 고버치가 꽉된스 어나 방적지 바방니 자와 잠르베서는 말했어 오늘 자네 셈리야 태도이나야 배 시디 现在没这用推下去，我不希望。真正是自己才是个这个什么金囊路怎么样吧？我呢感动吧，是吧？当我呢站那个边，人别个都是要当高定的，是不堂哥唐人他们那个当高人，可是高定是不马修之类，那真的要是都是我不讲吧，是要这个。처음에 식초모 실내 윤두산에 다 탈변 고된디 그 용초가 근데 탐지 캠변 고된디 모니고 자외연된디 용초가 근데 이제 상무 거유두산에 설명만 전에게 배 쪼다 심술해야지 용되기도 와. 자 근데 이두산에 고고 시워 단음해야 돼. 뭐는 전에게 배 심배 시분에 배 뭐는 전에게 롯 대고 차야지 용되기도 와. 고고 시워 단음 dindirdi ya chasi chi ne deng ya shugo ge le ji ji ka su ru ge sam su ge lam nyam ne chen ne be si ji ya le be ne ya ka zo ne jian de tan ya ma do ya ji yong yo ba da dindir me ba ko 렌식 방저 대 년부께도 또 방사를 제라 방사를 제가 라를 게 메롱도 샤네 그것도 내버린 중앙선에 답에 방저 차와 대배다 가서 우리 요매가 집에 있잖아요 내중스 왔다 뒤리만 상무스 당연데 선나는 먼저 그냥 좋아해야죠 근데 지금 다네 아니 대탑지게 람디 컨디션에서나 대탑을 람 컨디션에서나 mellam 때때하고 nga chan대하고 이 말에 내루 지그지그 람 지그 대 사직 투중시로로 때문에 지금 사직 과대봐서 많이 봐 양은 양도 곰니 굶지된 거 아니잖아요 람 지고 주바 될 때네 방제지 빵인도잖아요 년부터 누베도 가래 알았어나 방제들 라를 깨미로도 시작하겠다 누베 유도 비치잖아요 람 지고 주고 년신식도 어다 말한서 그래 좀 된데래 말한서 벽을 남아서 지게다 가서 개체시 실수해야 돼 마시랑 나온 정도 좀 된데겠다 청고 당부電子소야다 지금 완전 찬양한 좀 냠내겠네 시우직 부타고 띵도 다들 콜로 팔봐 소인도 전에 아니 고베 담바다 다 람지 담바서 되니 짜도 되네 다 소용이 와리 시징 저거디 되게 다들 거를 림버로디 독스 니버들래 하지 근데 이제는 공부루기 아니 데 가라사디 주의 때문에 나리야 메다 동에 동바시 자와수무 샘정인 샘정지체 다 초도 샘의 정제가 동리정심에가 인스 다샘 백만에 다네게 집에 싸워 봐 순징에게다 년부 초디 동리 나와제 어다디 아니 시징기 슝나로라 다 가다 고람 이부 콜로 당부 거도로 고람 송셔다 디베 14고 타로 봐 대한 법셔디 시징 도저리샤 당아도 시론이 못 된다잖아요 아니 뭐냐라 다 산지 입에 숭 뭐네베 숭급에 님부 아니 남진 주베다 탑 산제베 추게 투모인베 체주다 등에게 도치 잡도 또 시론이 또 그러 상담이나 아니 샴데 가데가데사디 아니 세미나 지금 쪼르실레체 시우자도가 나도 남지 별이야 그렇지않아도 신거지 도시 생성설도 지 바제 가서 바제 성향서로 샵된 줘야서 그래야 미두에 된데서지 도시 생성 그봐 지지 된데기다 산제 좀 된데기 숨기 인구 탐제 힘도 고만 주비하게 람사어 땅에 된데지 도시 시작해 요 말이 자디디 인도 그래서 아주 세세 멤버견이셔 로좀 맞아 베견이셔 나 디제래야 콜로 타마 또 콜로 리버스는 거 남자 너도 공전한 순기야래 너도 공전이랑 야 콜로 800도 올라 수는 남진이 봐지 최탐제 모니지 매버 공는 나왔다도 주요 말이시네다 수미 담에 재미 좀이 레시션 송인도잖아요 아니 민장 다유 잠기 땡중 참모데 로라 샤르모트베 뒤절이야 차다로 줘야게 내가 이거 인도잖아요 아니 너도 공지기 아니 시징 되나라 수는 남지 뭐 셔도 모니 뭐 주어 송어데 모니 미스 숨으로 거네 모니 매버 송이 마도 아니 유진 거냐 주고 때네 메시네 다 두스 컴포트야 말이시네 좀 된데 렁이기다 에 되죠 태식을 이제 공부 뜨부스 채도 아니 시징 너의 공부되냐 또 스파트에 서신 송도가 너도 공지지 천이 숨고 남샤 송네 다 아니 토미 구지기다 shum나로라 인디드 말레용이 하래 그봐 모님이 수숨로 거네 모님이 송어 인신다 송무도가 군다 천이 모님이 봐 샹왕 단다봉 가자 샹왕 겨왕 모님이 봐 용주 단다봉 모님이 봐 센다 두세네 모님이 수숨로 거네 아니 모님이 송어 인스 다 콜로 숨베 나라 콜로 타메 나라라 디시비 닝분도 규라메 셰셔사벤 도티 어디 규라메 따와디 가다다 우메베 따와라 차되기 하리 자 딘디 인도산에 규라메 셰셔사벤도 디시비 닝분도 되기 아니 따에 콜로 800건의 송시에 따와 대가나 제따 이네다 되기 검지기 로지 아니 맞아 남주 다니엘이야 동리 다와디 유지외세세리 검직을로 들라 유진외세세리 콜로 발베크도라 유지외세 남샤 차시차 송 차례 제라 콜로 다음에 디시고 님들 넣을거리야 유진외세디 아니 비고 등규권에 아니 막 쏘는 것도 어다 좀 된데 탑결로 두지 전보다 내가 되기 어다 디젤로 나란서 랍자도 마스네 녜라 킨더가든 직티 되네야 제 아니 미들 스쿨 제 되네야 제 아니 콜리지 유니버시티 제 도스 성도가 쉬워져셔 다 되기 유진의 외세 댄시버 되기 아니 유진의 외세를 봐 돈하고 그러지 제베이나 아니 나기 숭네 심 차라기 남이디 셔용도 아니 유진에서 타르투거디 아니 사제 람데베 체계잖아 그시 규규신다 송샤 데루 리기아리 아니 조신기 리고 상대세야겠다 터도 디간다 레이고야리 그다 다 리고 상대 맞아 라고 루부에 심 예심에 내금네 리고 상대가 뭐뭐자 여대버지다 조신 투모인 버지야 조당시르샤 나 상하 삶에 그도네 낭지 톱숨 계서 낭지 톱숨 제라 용야겠다 외세디 아니 외세 차슈도 저기야래 된대기 나란조 소지 내 당부배 아니 치워 외세 냠소녀의 그도기 신도체의 육매심 되다 이게 남진기 아니 예신이부터라 육매 외세기 정신근의 샤베이나 차라게 야마리 저자 감 대신이 무슨 순서 공부해서 또 대강 삼던 게 말이야. 또가 아니 콘대 예민신 순야디 퍼진 대백금의 순시에 콘대 예민 좀 말이 유진교에서 가는 삼단의 콘대 예민디. 세상가 그시 규규디 코레셔 되지 생이 수도 상. 아니 살람기 연대디디 연대기 수도 상. 아니 데뷔 아니 구시 연대디디 누주수도 상시네. 그다 근데 예명이 따와 또 쓰는 것도가 자들이 인도산에 따님모 외세도 가면 시기야 그래 봐 자다 이게 감 대신이 주의하게 두시 쏘데 디간에 삼등도가 뇌커도 디 뇽모 외세 뇽모 틀지집에 외세가 남샤 세고도 쓴거 야마디 네 공부 될시 송샤베 세브샤레샤 자들이 인도 귤라메나라 조상군이 초치상 디신이 매시상 리유천의 리젠그 다도 상계 님부전 시제 어디 송샤들이
So in relation to the Four Noble Truths seen in the light of the 16 attributes when you go to detail. So the first truth, which is the truth of the suffering, it has four attributes. The first one is the impermanence, then the suffering, then third one is the emptiness, and the selflessness. And then likewise, for the second one, which is the cause of the suffering, or the original suffering, there is the cause, then the cause of all, then the exuberance, then find the condition, and then for the cessation, the first one is the cessation, then the peace, then the abundance, and then the definite, the delivered state, and then finally for the path, the path, then the realization, and the practice, and the definite deliverer. So these form the 16 attributes. And of course, when we reflect on the 16 attributes, depending on what degree of the subtlety of the wisdom of selflessness, wisdom of emptiness, then to that extent, your understanding of the 16 attributes will come to be like. As for the first one, when we speak about the impermanence, so there we see that it speaks about the gross impermanence of death. And pertaining to the impermanence of death, there is the understanding of the point as to what exactly is that impermanent phenomena. Then we speak about the impermanence of this precious human birth. So from this point, we see how that can be related to the practice of the seeing the rarity and the importance of the precious human birth. And then also when we speak about the impermanence, we see how the precious human birth, this life, is as ephemeral. And then from that point of view, we are able to have a sense of detachment, sense of renouncing the feeling of attachment to this life. And then likewise, when we think about the second point, which is the suffering, after the impermanence, the suffering, and then we think about the details of the suffering, the detailed suffering of the next life. And then on that basis, when we see that there's a possibility, particularly by reflecting on the meditation, on the emptiness and the selflessness pertaining to the four classes of the divisions, the four classes of the first truth. So there, one gains a very strong commitment, very clear commitment. Yes, the truth of cessation, that I can be freed from suffering. This is very much possible. And then that too, when we see how all these miseries, they're created by the cause of suffering, and then when we see the possibility for the cause of suffering to be brought to an end, then the third truth, which is the truth of the cessation of suffering, we see that very possible. And the truth of cessation, freedom from the miseries by cutting the cause of suffering, that is possible only by applying the remedies. Only through applying the remedies, the antidotes, that this truth of the cessation, that we can possibly come to a total cessation or freedom from the suffering. So here, when you speak about the freedom from suffering or the cessation of suffering, it should not be just seen as the state, a state where your suffering has just come to an end, but more than that, the experience that you get is going to be very, very pleasant and peaceful. So that comes to the understanding as to the second characteristic of the truth of cessation, that this truth of cessation is of the experience of peace. And then this experience of the peace, this experience of the freedom from suffering, we see that it is of various levels, starting from the initial experience, which may be a little gross, pertaining to the third path of seeing. Gade, paragade, third one. Paragade, you have some degree of experience of the freedom from some degree of the suffering. So that is one state of cessation, and then it is not to remain stuck there. We have to go to the next, a state of cessation to be achieved by the next part of meditation, and then eventually we see that total cessation of suffering for oneself can be achieved, and more than that, the final state of the enlightenment, Buddhahood, or full awakening is also possible. All these we can experience, or we can gain conviction in through the understanding of the four divisions of the third class of the truth, which is the truth of cessation. So on that basis, we gain a deep conviction, and then we can feel such an in-depth joy there that I can surely bring an end to my suffering. This is very much possible. And whereas, on the contrary, there are some practices of single-pointed meditation, or the concentration, various concentration levels of the form realm and concentration levels to take you to a higher level of what is known as the formless realm. So there, even if you reach the summit of the experience of those realizations, then at one point you can relapse. And again, you could go back to the state of miseries. But unlike that, when you resort to the very powerful antidote of the wisdom of emptiness, then the cessation, that the cleansing of your mind of the mental defilements is going to be for good, that you reach to the level of what is known as not a temporary statement, not a temporary cessation, but definite cessation. So that is known as the definite deliverance. And then the next question arises, how can I achieve this state of the definite deliverance, or a total cessation of the miseries from my mind, or the total cleansing of the mind? How can this be possible? It is not, for this we require what is known as the fourth path, the fourth truth, the truth of the path, leading to the cessation. So this truth of the path is not something, is not to be where we feel complacent over simply by praying or simply by reciting mantras. This is not sufficient. So there we have to resort to a wisdom which directly realizes the ultimate truth, which is directly in opposition to the ignorance which is at the root of all the miseries. And then this direct realization of the wisdom, which is direct antidote to the ignorance or the root cause of the miseries. So this, again, we should not remain complacent over having the intellectual experience. And then we have to go to the next step, which is the reflection, and then further towards the meditation. And then it is through this practice of the wisdom of emptiness that you can then ultimately reach to the state where you have the definite deliverance happening. So therefore, this wisdom of emptiness to that height of the experience is referred to as the indefinite deliverer. And then, so whereas, say in Tibet, there was a tendency that in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a tendency that the Tibetans, they tend to see the Tibetan lamas as more important than the Buddha Shakyamuni. This is a real mistake. And if you look at who the historical Buddha is, Buddha Shakyamuni, who turned the three wheels of Dharma, the first one is the turning the wheel of the Dharma in the context with the subject matter of the Four Noble Truths. And if you just see that whole practice of your Dharma to free yourself from the miseries is all contained there. And then with the second turning wheel of Dharma, where there's a tremendous emphasis.
Now, this teaching of first, because of the Dharma wheel, of Four Noble Truths, and with that, 37 practice.
So then pertaining to the Four Noble Truths, teaching on the Four Noble Truths, there's a mention of the practice of the 37 paths of enlightenment. So the 37 paths of enlightenment, the first one is the four mindfulnesses, then the four pure abandonments, then the four medical powers, the four medical feats, and the five paths, the five powers, the five powers and the five strengths, and the seven limbs of the path of enlightenment, and the Eightfold Noble Path. So all these you will see mentioned in this the handout. So my point is, the 37 practice in the Four Noble Truths is the common, the Pali tradition, exactly same. So that's the foundation of a Buddha Dharma. The differences, some time back, I met one occasion, I have some discussion with some Thai bhikshus and some scholars. So we discussed about these Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Noble Path.
Oh,
Eightfold Noble Path.
These things we discussed. And then I asked, when you explain these 37 practice or Four Noble Truths, or 16
aspects, 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths,
mainly on the basis of a quotation or a reason. They told me on the basis of quotation. Then I reflect. Dharma Kedis, also the Parmana Vatika Karika, the second chapter, all 16 points, each reasoning, through reasoning, you see, made clear all these points. So therefore, the Sanskrit tradition very much based on reasoning, investigation. If Buddha's own word, you see, if you literally accepted that it goes against the reason, then we have the liberty to reject Buddha's own word. As yesterday I will briefly mentioned like that. So therefore, basically these four Noble Truths and 37 practice, these are basis of Buddha Dharma, so common Sanskrit tradition and Pali tradition. Now, second Dharma wheel is now only Sanskrit.
Then the continuation from the earlier translation. So this, the Buddha's teachings pertaining to the Four Noble Truths and the second turning wheel of Dharma, which extensively taught about the truth of the freedom from suffering and the truth of the path leading to the freedom. So you look at this, we see that this is something which really makes sense to our life and as Dharma practice. And it is said by Nagarjuna in his text, the Dharma Dhatu Stava, in praise of Dharma Dhatu.
No,
okay. Where he
thank you.
Where he mentioned that the path, the insight into impermanence, suffering, and the empty. So these three help in a purification of our mind, and the one which purifies our mind. Yes.
Then Choyi Dame, Page Rapadrisha. Didi Casa, Midatum, Dombashi, or the Dame Rapadshe. The Charles Sim Jongji is Chaw Sim Jongji, any Duni Shimamisa, the Duni Chamutishe.
So there, Nagarjuna in Dharma Dhatu, he mentioned that these three, the impermanence, the reflection on impermanence, suffering, and the emptiness, and of course clarification is required here. Emptiness, they are means for purifying the mental defilements, and the supreme of which is the wisdom of the emptiness. So there, you see the mention of the emptiness in two ways. The first one, which says it is the means for purification. So there, it refers to the gross one, gross emptiness or the gross selflessness, which again can be understood either in the context of the selflessness pertaining to the selflessness of the autonomous substantial reality, or the selflessness pertaining to the selflessness of unitary independent self. And then whereas the one which is supreme in purifying the negativities the most is the selflessness or the emptiness in the context of the emptiness of intrinsic reality. So with this...
Mida Dunge said the Chiramawe, any page Mida or Rabat Zorisha. Jenny, any Kasa Siniki Soshis, the Jig Siniki Soshis, never shake or what. Gawa, never, Gawa, Jibus. Da Chiramawe, da Gigi with the pages, the savage metal solution. Namde Nalolia, and then Dodebe Luia, Lane, Charuchini, without the Charuchini, Char without Shaggy, Gigi. That the Nagajito. Gigi Giadi, Jibuchinju Dulateva Maris, Gigi Gui, Gigi Jibu Donu to Gibaris, didn't into Gui Shawanche. Gui Shawanche in the Indu, Gumdir, Dugdi Pungu Tanki, Chashi Sumu into Zane. Gezi Giati, Gui Chabare, didn't you? Pumbu Gezi Jibati, Gui Shawanjares, didn't you? Judy Maribores, Numores, Shaindusane, teaches Mida Le Dunge, 사 따다려서 와 라고에다 왔디기 다 동에 어렸을때 아주 페버를 차서 깨지게 지게야디 귀게 버리스 두디 가르쳐나 머리 버리스 귀이 상황들이 실전에 녀월의 풍부디 두지기 동에 정신이보다 세우시 타임으로 저들이 인도산에 좀더 공하게 가다지 슝 장고야 돼 뺏겨지 버리셔 그래서 지금 좀더 오메급는 지금 숭셔버 디코너를 해서 대대베이나 아니 고다 간다 지금 산제베 지금 최고배 고와 창문들 내못해야지 야이 레디네 오모오모의 숭셔버 디디 시딩서로 전에 또 들어가야지 근데 인도 로벨 랭댕기 떡이 봐와 아니 차샤나 일단 가서 우문님보다 아니 대장들 떡이 봐야 나로리야 좀 되나 저기 찾아 저 숨도가 뺏겨지 버리셔 그다 처진의 상담나 즉 에카데믹 소리 처리야 처진의 상담나 다 공문공의 습게 쉐버라 오모 디디 쉐고야 되고 저들이 인도 뺏겨지 버리셔다 저상한테 디 가서 대버 지선선 어디 디디 슝디디 사마지 규율 제제 너무 중국이나 아니 냠린 제베 그도로 완전 자네가 그게 누구한테 뭐지 용돼야 된다래셔 시 롱상로 접수집에서 쳐도가 어디를 저 가르쳐잖아 아들 장조스 디 가서 미다스 주주체 아니 장조 소준지 디디 니리신도 샤금 제대기요 럼름이 샤금 제대기요 되는 시간다 대신에 다서 주루다 디디 샤금 제대기요 저도 삼다 유전에 제 그냥 삼 등기로 과사버를 대야 솔직히 13부도가 편부 12도 아니 진짜 제일 아니 좀 된데 땅 아래 기경이 사바인 자연구도가 생산제 좀 된데就是세네 타르 무엇이 가지고 쉬우체 이게 밖에 라달이야 게디 녀서 셰브리 근데 자나도 라다가 죽은 거지 이제 접어지는 거 뭐도 머신 민두스 기루스 젊으시 뭐도 머신 민두스 그게 됐어
Even with the understanding of impermanence, which the Nagarjuna indicated as the one which purifies the mind, so this impermanence again can be understood on two levels. The one according to how that is understood by the Vaibhashika school, the first school, and then the next how that is understood by the high schools from the South Tantric school and up the onwards. So there, according to Vaibhashika school, there is this understanding of impermanence is understood in the context of the four characteristics, which in the entity which has the four characteristics of the production, abiding, then the degeneration and the cessation. So characterize these forms. So that is what is understood as impermanence by the Vaibhashika school. Whereas on the contrary, according to the Pramana text or the text on the logic espoused by South Tantric school and above, impermanence is very different. That is much subtler. It talks about the momentariness, not just the impermanence in the context of the four characteristics. So there, according to this school, the subtle understanding of impermanence. So there, impermanence, when we speak about the momentariness or the instantaneity, momentariness, it is not that the results in the
nuclear physics.
No.
그게 도스미 통도가 계속 줄어야 돼.
No. So the same thing, what is described in impermanence, the subtle understanding of impermanence by the high schools, or South Tantric school and above, this is exactly what is now visible according to the nuclear, the physicists. They inside, they could, through the electron microscope, we can see the very subtle changes, the instantaneity of the subtle particles. So there, it is not that so here in this context, how the impermanence is understood is in the context of the object disintegrating, not by the power of an external second factor, but the power of the very cause which is responsible for the production. The same cause is responsible for the degeneration or the disintegration of the object. This is the uniqueness of the understanding of impermanence according to the...
컨테이너 견주수 정도와 깨어왔던 직부 균형, 깨어왔던 갑부 균형, 중어던 직부 균형을 봐, 깨어왔던 갑부 균형.
So otherwise, if on a very cursory form, if you in a very cursory form, if you reflect, it may sound as though very contradictory. So where it says the moment of production is synonymous with the moment of the disintegration. Moment of production is synonymous with the moment of the cessation. This seems to be very contradictory, but in actuality, if you go into deeper reflection, we see that this is understanding of this subtle impermanence. So with this in mind, that so from this we see that this change is not necessarily brought by an external factor, third factor, but by the very causal factor. So from this we see that all impermanent phenomena, they should necessarily come into being. The change that is brought to this impermanent phenomena is by the very causal factor. So all the physical components that we have, the aggregates that we have, they are also the composite phenomena, and they also change by the power of the cause. And the cause here, in our case, the aggregates that we have, what are the causal factors responsible for the change that is happening within our 5 aggregates is nothing but the ignorance, mental factor of ignorance. So we see that from this we see how efficacious it is when the Buddha said that what is impermanent leads us to the understanding of this suffering. So the suffering state of ourselves is all because of understanding of the subtle impermanence where things come into being, the composite phenomena come into being by dependence on the causes, and the disintegration also happening because of the causes. So in our case, the miseries, the lump of... No. So here when you speak about how the misery, understand of misery coming to being, but understand of impermanence, that is precisely in the context of the contaminated aggregates that we have. Otherwise, it is not true that everything which is impermanent may not necessarily be the misery, because even the non-contaminated Buddha's mental states, they are also impermanent phenomena, but they are not of the nature of the miseries. So this is what the nuance that we need to keep in mind. So with that in mind, we see that the impermanence, by understanding the impermanence pertaining to the contaminated aggregates, we see that exactly will lead us to the insight into the suffering nature of contamination. So from this, we see the need for us to understand very holistically of the Buddha's teachings, not simply be complacent with the understanding of one set of the philosophy according to the lower schools, Vipassana schools. If you remain like this, then your practice can remain very stagnant. So, say, the great Indian scholar, Acharya Bhaviveka, in his text, the Madhyamik Hridaya, and also Tarkajwala, the auto commentary, so there he very clearly elucidated all these philosophical positions in a very academic way, and at the same time, we see that the need for us to understand the expositions according to the lower schools in order for one to enrich one's own experience of the subtler versions of the high philosophical positions. So this gives us a very clear exposition of what constitutes the mainstream Buddhist teachings. So
가서 계속 고소르대 전에 삼삼에 다와마 손님 엔 숨베크돌이야 엔 점된 데기 룽스임베 엔 고물루루 다와래 로스는 소야데 모사 체미레스 tom이 구칠 때 소샤
So Acharya Bhaviveka, well, this is his plus point. The magnificence about elucidating all the philosophical positions so meticulously. But the one thing is that he's little outspoken. He's little outspoken. What is that? Particularly when he was elucidating the philosophical positions of the Manoni school, which goes in divergence with the philosophical position of the Madhyamika school, highest Buddhist school. So at one point he made a remark, very sarcastic remark, saying that someone very sarcastic against the great teachers like Arya Sangha and Acharya Vasubandhu, saying that it is shameless on the part of someone to expound a philosophical school which diverge from the position expounded by such a greatly saint, prophesied by the Buddha Shakyamuni himself. So this is where the area where we see that he's a little outspoken to be sarcastic.
Talk about 사실과 제도전에 뒤통수전에 근데 파고 tom이 룽스부터 다스잖아요. 슈니드가 그랬죠.
So when His Holiness was reading this text, this passage, when Acharya Bhaviveka was being a little sarcastic towards Arya Sangha, and then saying that how dare that such a scholar contradicts, goes in divergence with Arya Nagarjuna's philosophy, Arya Nagarjuna, who was actually prophesied the Buddha Shakyamuni. So His Holiness, a thought came to His Holiness that even Arya Sangha is also prophesied by Arya Nagarjuna. So this is what he wanted to just express to Acharya Bhaviveka if he were to be next to him.
나도 벽에 안 캐봐서 뒤숭구다 띵 시작된 같이 버리샤. 아들 시선 들이 있는 게 아니라 빈루 주변 가도 손집이 나눠리야. 뒤제 감신 이동 가사 쓰여사지. 시다. 근데 좀 전에 코란 게 콜로 800 공부띠 모니 메시아디 아니 생수로 거네 모니 맞죠 순두지 않고 뒤제 몰이야 뜨면 것도. 제상 파파 도미 구지기 예 콜로 타메 너도 공제 대비 나는 숭셰베 따와디 자도 때야지 그 뒤제 감도 매바도 되는 숭겨와. 자, 드리 인도 벽이 개발서 수업의 공부당 수업기 공부 먼저 시작해요. 그 밑에 연구했어. 수업을 한게 공부돼 변화 파고 도미 자샤나 서수님이 파고 도미스다 그래. 사수부 토요래. 드리 인도 인도산에 돈이 무슨 또 돼요. 코란게 수업의 공부도 되지. 이내 뒤제 감도 되니 수 공부 상식의 수업의 공부도 능력이 나왔습니다. 자, 벽이 뭔지에 가서 기부하고蒙古 폐지된 적 용서래. 수업부 능력 공부되다 공간도 대제 대득이 뒤제 처락고 지금 모두 되는 숭샤의 수업이 공부 밑에 된대 용거래. 그 점대에 코란 차샤네 풍부한에 쿨 번에 강사고 순주산에 아니 쿨 풍부듯이하네. 디 쿨게 강사 수도 개버지 순구도가. 디 풍부를 된시에 다 개버도 순구도가. 대점된 데게 숭전이 숭으로 공부지 차대요. 그러지 숭업이 공부 말아 봐. 숭업이 공부도 다음에 다 와라.
So in connection with this, the Buddha Shakyamuni, when he turned the three wheels of the Dharma, the second wheel where he expounded in great detail about the subtle depths of what constitutes ultimate reality. And in the third turn wheel of Dharma, Buddha taught to explain the three characteristics of the phenomena, three characteristics, inclined more towards the Chittamatra's philosophy, which is not really the final philosophy. And Arya Sangha, so his own view and the view of the text which he wrote can diverge. Say, Arya Sangha is revered as the one who has reached the level of the Bhumi Bodhisattva on the third Bhumi. Third Bhumi means where no doubt the person should have a direct realization of the final truth, which means that no doubt he had experienced the final truth according to the Madhyamika school. But then the text which he composed, they were all meant to interpret the third turning wheel of Dharma, which is more in tune with the Chittamata's philosophy. So therefore, the Tibetan scholars, they tend to make a distinction between the two things. One is the intention of the scholar, and the other, the intention of the text. So the text which the scholar wrote and the scholar's own view can diverge. So in the case of Arya Sangha, which Acharya Bhaviveka was a little sarcastic about, so this Arya Sangha, his own view is the view of the ultimate reality of the Madhyamika school, and whereas his compositions, the view of the compositions reflect more of the Chittamata. This is very much possible. So otherwise, if you look at even the Buddhas, in the case of the Buddha himself, Buddha Shakyamuni, at one point the Buddha Shakyamuni said that the person is the load carrier, the five aggregates that we have, they are the loads, they are the burdens, and the person is the carrier of these burdens. So indicating as though like there's an entity of the self, there's a self which is very distinct from the five aggregates. On the contrary, the Buddha also taught that there's no such self which exists as independent of the five aggregates. So from this point of view, we see that when the Buddha taught this particular teaching, that the five aggregates are the burdens, and the person is the carrier of the burdens. So there, the Buddha's own personal view is that such a self as distinct entity from the five aggregates does not exist, the selflessness of such a self. Whereas this particular teaching, the statement the Buddha made, the view of this statement has it that such a self does exist. So there could be, we need to make a distinction between the view of the philosopher or the person and the view of the statement which the person made.
No.
Yes. And coming back to where we left earlier, the translation.
After second Dharma wheel, that's Rajagri. See the Paranjaparamita Sutra is taught there. So that the second Dharma wheel. Then Yangpachana Soba Nang Emila and the Sungshivata Kolo. There's a so much shame.
No. So then in places like Vaishali and others, the third turn wheel of Dharma was done. That is that is of course the third turn wheel of Dharma. And in this way, if you understand the whole scenario of the Buddha Dharma in a proper context, then when we recite the Heart Sutra mantra, Gate Gate, Parasam Gate, there's a tremendous joy and conviction, confidence will come to you. And otherwise, in the Tibetan tradition, amongst the Tibetans, there's a tradition of one particular puja, referred to as puja, which is Dukshir Sesum. So the Tibetans use that Dukshir Sesum, the essence of which is actually the recitation Heart Sutra, which explains the final truth, ultimate ontological reality. Whereas the Tibetans, not at all being bothered to understand what this ultimate reality, ontological reality is, and simply use that text as a means to avert one's temporary obstacles. So that is a total misconception. And on the contrary, this text actually is the final, instrument.
I want to share another story. Japanese Buddhists, like Chinese Buddhists, and all the Buddhists who follow Sanskrit tradition or follow Nagarjuna, we all recite this Heart Sutra. So my Japanese, friend, great scholar and abbot. So he told me, we all Japanese Buddhists, everybody recite this sutra, but without knowing the meaning. So he loves my explanation about Heart Sutra. So many Tibetan also did the Thubten Gyatso Shimoda Shaski Mevich.
Yes.
So I think the Thubten Gyatso Ruchini the Shuhida Namal Hasa did run the Konyamonyo so Churaga Luju Konyue. So Churaga Luju Communion. Quran the Sundashta theory. 간 더이나 같이 지어래. 비중내 개발샤래. 그런데 우메숑다 하버 상아를 매버전에 요마래. 저런 그런 명리 지라마스 타버다. 소고 지라마스. 네, 소고 지라마. 소고 지라마. 세디 그런 날이야. 디 이시천에 요마래. 세니 뉴직 회사야. 뭐라니 년수도 야고체니 슝섭들이 뭔가 빼지 지기도 와. 제자가 님이 구라지 심샤를 레벨이. 근데 신윤식이요. 신윤. 기시 성주사지. 밑에 성지 야고지. 아주 보이지 버려. 암도. 기라게 따와서다. 시스케 매체. 나 코도 보이지 버다. 코도 보이지 버가. 내 여름실에 코스를 코도 보이지 버다. 쓰겠지. 암도지. 야고사요래. 그래 산대리. 진짜 인공 쓰는 거래. 아니 소고처럼 미산데 레벨이. 이게 갖는 거래서 이게. 아니 쓰는 거래서 레벨이. 쓰는 스카레스. 탐스 꾸니. 아니 시간 알마 루체니 시베기 아레스. 쓰는 게 아레스 두슬레벨이. 소고처럼 개문지게체. 어다 탐스 꾸기 파샤니 지지지에 주도 말했어. 기슬라 컵도를 진짜 뭐에 술 지지주다 샘다를 기라. 다 상하게 지기 띵인지도 지기 되게다 지기 14가 다 동력이 나와도 되니 야오 전에 지기 옆에 있는 다 저렇게 되어 버듯이 헛 갈 때에 있는 기르디 소처락서 템베스로 줬다.
So I'd like to tell a story about a Mongolian scholar who lived in Tibet. His name was Venerable Chödak, and he a Mongolian.
So there was this great scholar by the name the Mongolian scholar Chödak, and he had no faith in tantric teachings. He was just purely into sutra. And at one point, there was one Geshe Samtup, who was performing a very special puja. Puja.
Not Geshe.
Yes.
Kirimbre.
Yes.
Nyambashta chen shoji 가서 우리 지금 never tending it.
Yes. Someone who was not a Geshe, but having been through so many the rounds of the sadhana practice and a certain practice of tantra, and he had a tremendous power in tantra practice. So he was performing a specific puja meant to subdue the spirits, to help to remove the obstacles of the particular person. And then this Sopo Chödak, the great scholar who does not believe in tantra, who had no faith in tantra, he went there and he met the practitioner of Samdupla, and then asked, "What is happening here?" And the Samdupla, Gen Samdupla said that, "Oh, there's sinun happening. Sinun meaning subduing the spirits to clear the obstacles for the family." And then the Sopo Chödak, being very sarcastic, he said, "What is sinun? What does it mean by subduing the demons or the local spirits?" So there he said that the puja is done in such a way that the spirits, the mental continuum of the spirits, they're subdued, they're all brought here, and then you somehow subjugate them, and then the family, they're released from them. Then this Sopo scholar, he was very sarcastic, and he said that, "I can't imagine you subduing the spirits. You can't even subdue a tiny rat." This is very true. He was physically so fragile, he could hardly go and catch a rat. So how can you imagine him subjugating a more powerful thing, which is the spirit?
This one. Yes.
So this remaining part of the translations. Then say in the second turning wheel of Dharma, where the emphasis was placed on explaining the explaining the truth of the cessation and the freedom from the suffering and the path which leads to the freedom from suffering. And then on that basis, a detailed explanation of how things don't exist the way they appear to us and how things exist simply through mental imputation. And then then the third turning wheel of Dharma. Third turning wheel of Dharma, in order to go more detail into the second and the third and fourth truth, into the third and fourth truth, and the third turning wheel of Dharma, a part of which is Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra. So there's a mention of the three classes of the characteristics, where all phenomena are classified, saying that the impure phenomena, they are lacking the self-characteristic, and other part of phenomena, they are lacking the production, and the thoroughly established phenomena lacking the intrinsicality. So there, in this, and also in the sublime, the Uttara Tantra, which uses the third turning wheel of Dharma as its root text. So there, the explanation of the clear light, objective clear light and subjective clear light is very clearly elucidated with the help of nine metaphors and 9 main points. And the objective clear light, which is the ultimate reality, ontological reality of phenomena, which is very clearly explained in the second turning wheel of Dharma, and the subjective clear light, which is the subjective, the mind, which is in its purest form, clearly explained in the third turning wheel of Dharma. So there, it is like, so if you understand the three turning wheel of Dharma in this pattern, then it is like seeing that the Buddha is guiding us in a very systematic way, the way a child is brought up. Initially brought into kindergarten level, then to the school, then to the college, then to university. So this is how the Buddha's teaching is so precise and meticulous in leading us towards our higher intended goal. So now, specifically in relation to the third turn, the subjective clear light. Subjective clear light, say the various traditions, Tibetan traditions like Sakya, and Sakya, there's a mention of this clear light. Clear light in this the text Kunshu Gyugyu, and then in the context of the Dzogchen Nyingma tradition, there's the mention of the Rigpa Sangtel. And then in the Kagyu tradition is the Mahamudra, and then in the context of the Guya Samaja and the other traditions, there's the mention of the clear light assumed at the end of the experience of the appearance, red near and another one is the innate clear light with the non-duality of the wisdom and emptiness. So there we see that if you understand in this context, then the clear light that all the ordinary people, we experience at the time of death, this clear light and the experience of the clear light by the Buddha, these two by no means we see that there's any difference. So this is the actual...
Any sick decodu de Benji Kukoma, Shumelmado, Shen, Tawa Moinkan Dogan, Tawa Megar Dogan, and the compatible country progress in Shuko Irish Dos Sonduga. That day, Duru Jimmy Damage soon the Bay order. Tawa Telepebe Kadula, any Megan de the Zores. Tawa Gombe Nigola, Tanga the training, Mark Natural the training units, and any Moinga compatible Zores. Could you show me? Rather, Zojin Shashana, Yalla, some Chunian Rosum Chang Zeni, some Rashim of Dalapo. 다 런시부 때는 펌니 되네 리고 까다 그런시 뭐 까다 아니 런시 흔주 사다 흔주 그때는 삼단지 나야 믿음 규모대비 세리 셈디 고민 거 알아 봐 자상가 단도 규모대비 셈디 고민되잖아 곰도 뭐인가 좋으레스 때는 펴베 내걸라 메가데 좋으레스하지 싫어야도 두르지미 되면 무슨 그래
So,
안도
in
사자
this context,
세와 셈지선이 동보 셈지人시 세동 송주 송괴와 다 조진 샤샤네 뭐 가다 런시 흔주 당 강매 선도 송도가 투지 강매 사티 뭐 런시 투지 선 어다 디도 야오 상탄 공지고 있나 근데 공부직도 보셔야 돼 담버리샤 애들이 인데 변시 반대 시기에 슉 가서 보셔서 숨버리지 다디 그냥 공부 땡땡시 선의 슈구라래셔
So in this context, it's quite true what Panchen Lobsang Chogyal has said, where in his text on the Mahamudra, he says that when someone, a great learned person, learned in scriptures of the definitive teachings, and also someone who has the experience of the teachings, check into these different traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, that such a person would find that all these traditions actually converge to the same point. And so it is true because when someone who has actually the knowledge of the different philosophical systems of Madhyamaka and Chittamatra and so forth, as well as the profound teachings of Tantra, the profundity of Tantra, and someone who knows them well, then they would actually find that all these different Buddhist traditions converge to the same point. And but at one point, one of the Panchen Lamas later after Panchen Lobsang Chogyal, Panchen Pelden Yeshe,
로사 예시 되는 반대시
the third Panchen Lama, Panchen Pelden Yeshe, when he was giving a teaching on the same text by Panchen Lobsang Chogyal, somewhere in the eastern part of Tibet.
in Kumbum
In Amdo region.
that's my monastery
So while he was giving teaching on it, and when he came to this verse saying that all the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, whatever name that may be given to them, whether Mahamudra or Dzogchen and Shije and so forth, come to converge to the same point, he actually said that if the Panchen Lobsang Chogyal was still alive, I would have to actually ask him this question. I have a column here. He said that how can these two philosophical understandings of, regarding emptiness, with regard to emptiness, how can these two systems, one which asserts that the ultimate truth is that of a negation, a non-affirming negation, and the other traditions which assert that the ultimate truth is affirming negation. I mean, how can these two come to the same point? That I wanted to ask. Panchen Pelden Yeshe said during his teaching. But then, with regard to this point, I find it quite true that the different traditions can come to the same point because, according to Dodrup Tempe Nyima, Jingmi Tempe Nyima, he says that when we actually in our called intellectual exercise or learning about emptiness and the ultimate truth, it is true that we need to emphasize more on the non-affirming negation, whereas when it comes actually to the practice of integrating, internalizing the teachings, then we can actually, we should emphasize on the non-affirming negation. And so these
So there, this is what he said, and then so the basically we see that there's no contradiction in seeing the same emptiness in one context as non-affirming, and then in one class of the practice in the form of affirming by actualizing the first negating the intrinsicality of the mind, and seeing the non-affirming negative nature of the emptiness of the mind. And then after this, when you actually go into emphasizing on the meditation on the nature of the mind, after negating the intrinsicality of the mind, then you simply abide in this experience of the clear and the luminosity and the clear nature, the awareness nature of the mind. So there's no contradiction in it. So if
ngāg sabje di yujiwe sekde ne dungyao mare, yujiwe se donga chibare, sabenge sungyore, tawa donga nigi tawa le khabare yao mare is, kese in ngāg tawa di doda khabare yaba ina dati treba chantu gyurus sungodoga. Chasanga yujiwe sek dungni sha yin zane donga khabare yao mare. Ta ngāg khajo di yujingwe sekde ne dungyao yaba yin zane tawa di sungsha.
So when you speak about the objective clear light and the subjective clear light, in terms of objective clear light, there's no distinction as to what constitutes this objective clear light between the traditions, the Sutra tradition and the Tantra tradition. So it's just the same. And in the Sakya tradition, there's a mention that in terms of the objective clear light, there's no distinction between the Sutra and Tantra. Should there be a distinction, then this view of emptiness will become the one with the elaboration, which is not to be acceptable. And whereas in Tantra, the distinctive feature of Tantra is to emphasize on the subjective clear light.
Oh yeah. Now, time for tea. I think essential sort of point in the Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, I think cover I think through my introduction of Buddha Dharma. So I'm not going to read that. I think not necessary. At the beginning, Yende Rangshi ke dage ni teorship sungne la chungwe sonam dunle phagwe yang de da jungse jik de pyeji sambarik. So another Nagarjuna sort of letter to his friend, that is Kasa, precious garland, right? Jana Kasa. Janamala. That's first chapter of that text. I feel very, very useful. Here also is mentioning how to make preparation for next life, good next life. These things was mentioned. Then with sort of the positive body, that means human body, and with this human brain, and then you utilize this brain, and then further development can do. So firstly, we must fully prepare to get next life as a good human body. Then on that basis, then you see further sort of study or practice, then eventually reach moksha. So that the Nagarjuna's Garland land, the first chapter mentioned that. That I often, you see, teach, use text for public like that. So this also is quite similar, but not that much deep. So then, you see, the first, then I think fourth chapter. Chapter consider Recitation. I think 4, 5 way.
No.
Then the, I think last chapter, fifth chapter, then he mentioned about altruism. Wonderful. Then second chapter also you see explaining about Sunyata. Then later part, I think second chapter, then third chapter, fourth chapter, as you see, he wrote to advice to his as a friend on king. So he mentioned how to carry the responsibility about king like that. So that's not much relevant. So now I think the third Dharma wheel, no, first Dharma wheel, second Dharma wheel, third Dharma wheel, you see this, quite systematic, quite systematic. So I always see telling people, Buddha, telling to Buddhist, we should not consider Buddha as something very powerful and almost like creator. That's wrong. Buddha himself, you see, Buddha, you see, cannot sort of wash our sin or the causes of suffering. And Buddha cannot remove by his sort of hand the suffering. Nor Buddha cannot sort of give us, transferred his own inner quality. Then the very motivation to achieve Buddhahood by Siddhartha, to help, to serve other people. So then you cannot sort of wash, you cannot give, you cannot sort of transfer. And then what is the way to help a sentient being? Only through teaching. Because, as the Buddha stated, you are your own master. So everything depends on them. The Buddha stated. So Buddha's sort of own sort of responsibility, and what he can do is show the path. So then, whether you say you follow that or not, up to you. So we should consider Buddha as our teacher. So just worship teacher is not proper way. Listen teacher's explanation, then examine teacher's sort of explanation. So like I think general education, Buddha as a teacher had taught us certain things, like first Dharma wheel, as I already mentioned, is a kindergarten level. Then the second Dharma wheel, much deeper. Then third Dharma wheel, one part is he deliberately taught according to the audience. The one part is the, as I mentioned earlier, the clear, because of subjective clear light. That, see, his intention is to lead tantric practice one Tibetan great scholar, Kunda Debedremi, Kundri Sundwa, and the Pena Latombush Devochuna, Rimbegi, Ya Toro Chinche, Endus lesser degrees, or Dinan Shincheni, today, Toma any, Denshi Chongone, do Sia Tisha Rishas, Tipeji, Dasha Shadow, Dirisha.
The great one Tibetan master by the name Kongdan Dembedrume, he made one statement which says that your practice, Dharma practice, should be seen as you climbing a mountainous pass or the mountain. So initially, no.
And color shifts the grace. Persia, Shakespeare does, you have in Uncle Doss to what it can't do Shigomendo. The Chugu dancing and a tall shift church, and another color Madan dance.
So, I just wanted to tell a joke here. At one time, I actually suggested my private monastery, Namgyal Monastery, that the monastery should actually offer water, hot water, to the monks. And one of the persons who was actually taking care of the storeroom of provisions said that if we give too much hot water to the monks, actually that would help them eat more, so that we would run out of provisions. Rather than that, he said that we should give them more, a little bit more of butter tea, Tibetan butter tea, so that they will still be filled, so that they cannot eat much.
So this master, he gave the metaphor of climbing or ascending a mountain. So there you have to start from the base. From the base, then you progressively go higher towards the top. So likewise, when in the pursuit of your Dharma practice, you have to start from the base, the way the Buddha Shakyamuni guided us, by turning the first wheel of Dharma, laying down the ground for us on the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, and then taking us higher towards the second level, which is the second turning wheel of Dharma on the ultimate reality. And the third one, of course, it has the two parts to it. So one which emphasizes on the subjective clear light. So this makes a great sense in terms of how to approach our Dharma practice.
So therefore, in order to serious practice, you should learn all these teachings. You should not rush just a tantric practice. You must prepare well, step by step. Then your tantric practice truly become meaningful practice. Otherwise, just imagination. One time, a Sri Lanka monk, you see, he expressed, Tantrayana. It's quite Kasota, Yam Saru Shayaris, in a Dinamdo Jagiar, but the Pen Yamaris.
A Sri Lankan scholar once said that.
I think monk scholar.
He said that Tantrayana is really fascinating. It has too many fantasies there, but it will only help to proliferate your conceptualizations, your thoughts, and it will bring to more discursive thoughts. It will not help otherwise.
So all these, I think, entire Tibetan population, I think, of course, except very young children or some other. Otherwise, we all supposed to be practitioner of Tantrayana. Without knowing what is Buddha, what is Dharma. So I think that is really, a mistake, unfortunate. Sometimes I really feel, of course, all the great lamas of Tibet are wonderful. I always remember them, the respect. But they, I think, too much to the so manga yin, dangma yin
So, with due respect to all these great teachers, one thing which I am a little reserved is they are having the tendency to confine themselves to a very small border of the teaching, which they consider as the heart essence of all the practices, and confining themselves to something very small, very small.
So, early 60s, I have been Singapore and Japan and Thailand. So some occasion in Singapore, I noticed, of course, many Chinese Buddhists. So when I explaining about Sunyata or the Buddhist, these things, they this looks, don't pay much
Attention.
in even some cases sleeping. Then there's some Tantrayana sort of blessing, jhana.
The permission initiation, when the permission initiation is granted,
Then everybody, so something very
Alert.
with tremendous attention, with the great alertness, they pay attention when it is to do with something tantric empowerments.
Unlike some Westerner, then begin to showing interest. So Westerner, when I explain, they made note or something like that. Those Asian Buddhists, so we very much sort of interested about the tantric practice, a short path. So within 3 years we can achieve Buddhahood. No one achieved that. Lusum chosung sangye grisene, shivish nam yusung dege yore, sangye ge cheme duwa.
So although it is widely proclaimed that you just practice this Tantrayana and then within the 3 years, 3 months, then you will achieve enlightenment. But it has been so long till date, but there's no one who is able to achieve that feat of achieving enlightenment within 3 years.
Ene ngande ka shasar de yende pumnang ge mamene shichine bagores. Dadi yene baba yinro mene mabe rangbe yinro ka mashibta.
So there is a saying that the qualities, the spiritual qualities that you have achieved, they are not to be disclosed. They are to be maintained confidential, like keeping the light, lamp in a vase. So now here, maintaining confidentiality of one's qualities, I don't know whether it can be of two kinds. One, because you have it and you try to keep it confidential, or otherwise you don't have it and there's no choice other than to say it is confidential because you don't have to express it. So which of the two?
So therefore, I believe, you see, those non-Buddhist, some of these ideas quite useful. Now, many top scientists also is showing interest about the Sunyata or Buddhism interrelated. Now that's I think in the concept of interconnectedness, interrelated, that I think climate condition, climate issue, that concept is very helpful. The global economy also is that very relevant. So the person who have that kind of sort of certain certain view about interrelated, that is very helpful in economy field or climate sort of field. I think in the political field, everywhere. So, the concept of interdependency, no independent existence or absolute existence. That even non-believer, these concepts, I think, helpful, useful. And then certainly the explanation about human mind, human emotion, and the tackle about that, that also, you see, I think relevant to entire 7 billion human beings. So that's why, as I already mentioned yesterday, now you Indian now should take more active role to promotion of inner value. That's part of Indian tradition. So I think the modern Indian, I think 100% spent on material things. Now, at least 30, if possible, 50% also you see spend more of the inner value. That is part of your own tradition. India's, as I mentioned yesterday, all these Nalanda masters, really, I think, really great thinker. And I usually describe Buddha himself. I usually describe one aspect of Buddha is, of course, to Buddhist, Buddha. One aspect of Buddha is philosopher. One aspect of Buddha is a scientist. Everything based on reason and experiment. So all these Nalanda master, to us, Nalanda master. But one aspect of these masters are great thinkers, great philosophers, and scientists. At that time, no instrument, but through their own logical analyzation. So,
Should I boast about something here?
Since we are, and I myself, a follower of these great professors of Nalanda, so I also become quite tiny professors. So that's your sort of knowledge, your tradition. Please pay more attention. Now we need just one or two sort of occasion, my talk, not sufficient. We should have some kind of systematic program and for revival of ancient your knowledge. Isn't it? Like that. So, now, goodbye, this text. Now questions. Question and argument also good. Because we trained, right? We trained, right? A lot of argument.
So for this kind of argument, there are two kinds. One is oral argumentative debates. Other one is the argument on the basis of the sticks and the stones. So the second part should not happen here.
Actually, it's some occasion in a great monastic institution. See, Gandel Kichore, Gandel Chik, the only Chichomendo, go Daxada, Puzo the Canyon Tower Shishyas, and Gazosne, Daxadi, Muchimche, Canyon the Tower Shishyas, and go Tibet, Cherana, Dotu, Golshian.
So in one monastery in Tibet, many years ago, there was this very rigorous argumentative debate process or a debate system as a mode of studies. So there, and the two monks, they were debating, and the one who defended the position, he defended it so sternly, so firmly, that the debater could not really put forward any further the points of argument, and he was left with nothing to do, because the the defender was very strong and very firm with his stand. And then he became so upset and he became so desperate, not knowing what to do. And then he finally picked up a stone and hit the defender with the stone.
When I was young, so I carried some, of course, debate with someone. You see, his position, very sort of, very firm.
Very firm.
When tamja dambu shivche, sometimes can be doing it. Enga corner several. Enga come out of the bed to stay in.
So when His Holiness was younger, during his training, the periods, in his studies, so there, the person who was helping His Holiness, he was defending the position, and His Holiness was to throw questions. So the defender, how you defend your position can be done in two ways. One, defending the position with the tremendous power of the reasoning and logic. And the other, defending the position just for the sake of defending and no meaning really be found there. So His Holiness was very seriously putting forth questions to explore deeper. That person simply stopped His Holiness' debate by remaining so firm with the position without any meaningful point there. And then His Holiness became so agitated, and then His Holiness just stopped the debate and stopped talking to him also for some time.
Essential, tell ya. Sugar cham sorry. Da 가르치고 있나? 하면서 가게 무슨 거 도시 슈슈도 다 죄고 있나? 다 도시 되고 있나? 가르치고 있나? 거기 심지어 소리.
So when His Holiness was in this process of the training of the debates, so the tutors were
essential.
No, assistant,
yes.
Debate assistants.
Debate assistants were there, and particularly one, the Thubten Gyatso was one of the debate assistants.
After
there.
many years, you see, he told me that way. No?
Yes. That when that situation happened, that His Holiness, because finding that the defender, he was just so firm, not at all ready to go, let His Holiness go further into a deeper exploration, simply by defending his position without any meaning there. So His Holiness, when His Holiness stopped talking for a while, then the Thubten Gyatso, one of the debate assistants, he did not know what to do. Should we now
the session stop?
Dismiss the session, or what did he could not do? He could not.
Dalai Lama remained completely silent. Like that, so they do not know how to do. So therefore, you see, I love some argument. Okay. Now some questions. Yes.
Argument, because currently our education systems in India are based on the absence of argument. Our children are taught to learn by rote and reproduce. And all the power of going forward has to come from a fear of failure. In your experience, what would you say to us as parents or teachers, how to sow that seed of optimism so that can be the basis for enthusiasm and not fear of failure?
Actually, since a number of years, it's not only myself, but many educationists and scientists have the view the existing secular modern education not adequate, not complete. So we should include education about inner values, strictly secular way, as yesterday I also mentioned. So now in America and also in this country, some organization, some individual now already carry research how to introduce an existing modern education system about the education about inner values. Then, I think in education field, I think it is very important. In
the education system, it is very important to introduce this concept, what is known as the learning through first hearing, the wisdom or the intelligence encouraged through initial learning. Then the second phase, the intelligence are encouraged through reflection on what you've learned. And number three is the intelligence encouraged on the basis of familiarizing over what you have reflected and what you've learned. So these three processes, these three phases of the learning must be encouraged in the modern education system.
So second level, learning is not just accept what teachers say, what book says. You yourself analyze. And for that, you should have books or same subject, different views. I think should have. Then,
analysis.
Analyze. In that respect, logic is very essential. Then, only that way you develop conviction. So this is nothing to do with religion. Simply, how to develop our human intelligence proper way. The intelligence have the potential. Now, education is opener of that potential. So just to repeat is not sufficient. So Buddhist, as a Buddhist teaching or the way of Buddhism, Buddhist practice, I usually describe, use human intelligence or human brain maximum way, through that way transform our emotions. So in order to use our intelligence maximum way, skepticism is very important. Now, should not be yes minister. Whatever the others say, yes. Not that way. You see, some skepticism, and then investigate. No. Next question.
Sorry. His Holiness, yes. I'm so I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about the role of the arts, as in music, dance, film, visual arts, in spreading karuna or compassion. Because people in the arts, we like to think that we can spread goodness and good emotions and positive change in the world. But I've never actually heard you speak about the power of using the arts to spread compassion.
Karsa, art, music.
Music that is music so vegetan. Music vegetan in Kranzo Zewa in Zugo and Taiwan in a detone.
The artistic way carry some message to audience. As I think at the music and certain kind of songs, and also I think the some sort of television sort of sort of the message here the champagne the message so something and sort of sex sort of in a message depend
I do agree that you can use art, whether it's be music or visual arts and so forth, that these can be used as a medium to transmit the message of love, compassion, and so forth. So your main goal should be to teach people or pass the message of love and compassion and so forth. But as part of your program or your show and so forth, there could be other things that could be included as well. Even going into some kind of a sexual kind of a thing could be included. But the main message should be focused on love and compassion.
Yes, the artistic way carry some sort of message or convey certain deeper value. And I think media people, have great important role. Many occasions, when after my talk, I take question and answer as usual. Then some people, many occasions, the people express, basic human nature is negative. So future of a world, dooms are down.
Doomed.
So these, I feel the media always carry the message of some sensational.
Yeah.
Killing, murder, sex, and bully. And then people gradually develop the concept of basic human nature is negative. So the media, I think, it is very important to show all this negative thing. But at the same time, they must give sort of impression, basic human nature is positive. For example, human being, very negative, then we don't need any worry about population. So still on this planet, the rule of compassion, rule of affection, still very, very important. Therefore, now we have sort of another sort of cause of worry. Too many old people cannot work, but eating. So younger generation have to work more, to fulfill these old people. Because medical take care. Lifespan longer, like that. And then too much children. So I think best way to birth control is both young ladies, young youth should become celibate, monk or nun. That's the best way, birth control. Non-violent way. So this shows in this planet, I think rule of affection, love is very, very strong. That we take for granted. So not news. Then killing, bully, rape, then should become news. So I think media people have, a very important presentation, more balanced way, should not create hopelessness feeling among the audience. Next question.
His Holiness, I have a very basic question. Is there any particular reason that Dalai Lama has always been a man? And can the future Dalai Lamas ever be a woman, maybe?
Yes, that's many years, many years ago, in France, Paris, I think one ladies' magazine, one sort of correspondent or I think editor, maybe, came to see me. Then she asked me, in the future, Dalai Lama can be women. Then I immediately mentioned, certainly. If circumstances such, a female Dalai Lama is something effective or useful, then certainly come. The reason is in Tibetan tradition. I think earliest reincarnation, I think Karmapa. I think almost now, 700 years, right? No dangerous person, right?
900.
Just. That Kanda, Germany to the Quare, the Conla.
Shishyas.
Huh? So earliest, I think the reincarnation system come, karma brahmache. So same sort of period, something doja pamo, female, highest sort of reincarnation lama. So in Tibetan tradition, you see, there are female high lamas. At the modern time, some kazoda, ngone chikta kazurbe, pena, kaza, tam in the time also them send, or shuksu jisung soro, yongrar wada, ngone tranek that lama zashum ziacho.
So female reincarnate lamas like Shishyas were well known, renowned in Tibet.
No, so therefore, I mentioned, yes, very possible. Then I add, if female Dalai Lama come, the face must be very attractive. So if female Dalai Lama, I think people, when they heard the name Dalai Lama, yes, some kind of sort of enthusiasm to see. They actually saw, then that is difficult. It's practical. So one of the quality of Nami and Susang.
One of the qualities, as which is mentioned, in the scriptures, as a result of past, good karma, is to have a good feature.
So like that, I mentioned that. So later, some Indian, he wrote a letter to me. He criticized that expression. Most probably, person who wrote that letter, I think herself, not very nice face. Then I have more reasons. You see, and I think there's few in very, very early period, a human being, eventually, you see, a human being developed through evolution. And then few population, small population. The Marxism, some of the communism, used to say, original socialism or Marxism, or like that. So, no ruler, everybody equal. And whatever they get, they share same way. At that time, no concept of ruler, ruler. Mare.
Leader. Leader.
Leader. Then gradually, population increase, farming system start. Then they feeling or concept of my field, mine. Then steals, bully, these things happen. So the concept of leadership developed. So at that time, no rule of education. So in order to become leadership on that group, the physical strength is the key factor. So male dominance start. I think ordinary generally animal also like that, more physically because of the stronger, that become the leader. So male dominance is a come. I think elephant, the mother, I think so the main leading of that herd like that. So otherwise you see male dominance even animal. So the male dominance is a start. Even in religious field, you see that
Trend.
Shugi.
That influence, pattern. Influence.
Lovda.
The influence of that dominance.
So therefore, then education started. So education bring more equal. Especially modern time, I think effective great leader, some of them female, like Indira Gandhi, in Kasajuti. Now I think one indication is my brain a little bit sort of now because of changing. So more and more difficult to remember name. So in any way, more and more sort of because of the education brings more equal. Now here, in modern time, as I mentioned earlier, education not give us guarantee to bring happier humanity, compassionate humanity. So we must make effort for promotion of human compassion. In that respect, female, biologically more sensitive, others' pain. So now scientists also, you see, through their experiment, now they say female have more sort of sensitivity about others' pain. So at time, you see, we need a special effort for promotion of compassion. Now female should take more active role. This I always telling, expressing. So some of my friends, you see, describe me as a feminist Dalai Lama. So in any way, so therefore, that also is a background, or in this situation. Firstly, Dalai Lama's the institution should, should continue, right?
No. Should it continue?
If this institution continue, at that point, is as early as 69, my formal statement, official statement, I stated the very institution of Dalai Lama should continue or not up to Tibetan people. Then, since 5th Dalai Lama institution become head of both temporal and spirituality. Now that, since 2011, totally ceased that. Voluntarily, happily, proudly ended that. So now, I'm no longer the responsibility of temporal thing, only spiritual and environment, like that. So therefore, within my lifetime, last 60 years, I carry the responsibility. I think most difficult period. During those period, because of the India's sort of advice or knowledge, my mind remained calm. Without that, I think 14th Dalai Lama eventually become mad. or eventually, you see, disrobe and alcohol. I think yours sort of, because of the traditional sort of knowledge, these 17 Narada masters, you see, their teaching or their advice give me inner strength. So no matter how difficult it is, I keep peaceful mind. So in any way, so now I sort of, the commitment is try to preserve these valuable sort of knowledge or techniques, and not only preserve ourselves. Now here, I want to share with you almost like my own sort of history, right? History. 1959, 17th March, because of the evening, I escaped from Nobulinga. So at that time, the only concern, tomorrow I may see because of the new day or not. Because really, there is real danger whether I can survive or not. Then eventually reach India. Few thousand Tibetan, I think few 10,000 Tibetan escaped. Then immediate sort of concern is concern about these refugees. Meantime, we also, you see, seriously sort of concerned, thinking, a handful small refugee, we have the freedom. So it is our responsibility to preserve our ancient knowledge, including our script, our language. So that's my main sort of concern and main work. That's 59, early 60s. And accordingly, I asked Pandit Nehru establishment of Tibetan school. Pandit Nehru really very sympathetic, very sort of
Dedicated.
he fully committed to help us. So all these sort of program is the principle laid down by Pandit Nehru. Wonderful. And the Rajendra Prasad. Oh, wonderful, wonderful person. Dr. Radhakrishna, sometimes I feel too proud. Good scholar. One who no, I think too much now. so I think I may sort of share with you my feeling. Rajendra Prasad, very humble. Dr. Radhakrishna, good scholar, of course, Oxford sort of scholar and teacher. And his sort of Sanskrit, knowledge Sanskrit, excellent. So one occasion he recite one shloka, the Madhyamika Mulakariga, Nagarjuna's that text. See, one shloka he recited in Sanskrit. Oh, really marvelous. But I felt in deep insight, the knowledge about that meaning of that shloka, I may be better. Because we studied. He simply recited the shloka in Sanskrit with certain tunes are there.
Tune.
Certain tune like that. One time, one Sanat, one teacher, Indian, Kasa Kweming Kasa Upadeva. You see, scholar of Sanskrit. You see, one occasion we met at Dharmasala in early 60s. And then I asked him, please recite the
verse of salutation from Prasanapada.
Oh, he recited that. Then I reflect all these great masters, then tear come. Really. All those great sort of scholars, the source of this knowledge, you see, they use that language and write in that language. So now some Sanskrit scholars, they told me the style of Nagarjuna's writing and Dharmakirti's writing is something top quality about Sanskrit. So now that also now brings sort of my sort of one sort of conviction, my request. The Pali tradition, Burma, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos, you see, they really kept, you see, that tradition. And they have the sort of authority for preservation of these traditions. Now Sanskrit tradition, China, of course, historically, the responsibility, but difficult situation. Although now China, around 400 million Buddhists now. But overall, still, you see, they not a free country, so some difficulties. Then with Tibet, we lost. So now, who take care about Sanskrit tradition? You Indian, no other. Mongolia, also you see, passing through difficult period, still difficult period. So therefore, you Indian now should take responsibility for preservation of Sanskrit tradition. So in any way, so then in early 60s, my main sort of concern, responsibility is how to preserve. Preservation, not just sort of music or these things, but real knowledge. So we establish these big monastic institutions, re-established in India. Usually we call some of these institutions, we usually call the second Nalendra, we usually call second Nalendra Niba.
No.
Oh. So we, with help of Indian government and also Mysore state, the Mr. Nijalingabas, you see, immense helpful. So when Pandit Nehru wrote a letter to few states, the allocation land for Tibetan settlement, the best response come from Mysore state because Mr. Nijalingabas there. Since '56, we become very close friend. So that's, you see, another sort of period. Main concern is preservation. Then 1973, I had the opportunity to visit Europe. Then I noticed, highly developed, but you see, lack of sense of global responsibility. So I start the idea and the talking about sense of global responsibility. So then, gradually, in 80s and 90s, I think late 70s, start dialogue with scientists. That also is immense help to know the reality and to know the certain sort of also because of the reality or thinking. And also I noticed that among the scientists, I think a true spirit of internationalism. They don't care what this nation or that nation. And of course, no concern about religious faith. Real sort of sense of internationalism. Wonderful. So, and also open-minded. Wonderful. So then gradually, I developed certain sort of confidence. Now we can help something. And particularly the whole world, a lot of sort of unnecessary problem due to lack of moral principle. Even this country, a lot of corruption. Indian, generally speaking, very religious-minded people, but a lot of corruption. So sometimes I sort of teasing my Indian friend. I think each Indian family, I think morning with incense and some flower in the front of Ganesh or Saraswati, so some offering, some prayer. It looks, they're praying, they ask God, please help me to success my corrupted life. I think we should pray to God. Like one occasion I met some Cuban refugee from America, very religious-minded. He very much complained about Fidel Castro. So, you see, he told me every occasion when he because of the participate, because of the church. Worship prayer, that he prayed to God, please bring Fidel Castro to heaven sooner the better. I think that's quite nice. One way, you see, the end Fidel Castro. Negative. But pray, bring to heaven. It's nice. So I think, you see, we should pray to God. I think those corrupted people, please bring to heaven, the sooner the better. So in any way, so the education, not law, but through voluntarily awareness, with honest, truthful, you see, you get more friend. With truthful, honest, you can carry your life transparently. That brings trust. That brings friendship. As I already mentioned yesterday, we are human beings. We are a social animal. A friend is very important. So therefore, you see, through awareness, you see the altruism, and in order to tackle our emotion, we should have fuller knowledge about map of emotion, map of mind. Without that, difficult. Just to pray, impossible to reduce these things. So therefore, from our sort of knowledge, it seems now clear we can offer something. Now, another level, not only preservation or knowledge, but share with outside world or world of humanity. So therefore, wherever I go, I always try to sort of mention, please pay more attention about our inner value. Therefore, all these material come from India. So I describe, I'm messenger of ancient Indian thought. And then furthermore, I also describing, I'm son of India. Reason, few years ago, some media people, some medias, a Chinese group, Chinese community, some American, some from America, some I think mainly China also, I think, or some Taiwanese. One sort of media, Chinese media person, used to ask me, why you mention you consider as a son of India? He felt this may be political reason. Then I mentioned, all my sort of thought or knowledge come from Nalanda. So every every part of my brain, each cell filled by Nalanda thought. Then this physical, at that time, over 50 years. So then I told, this physical survived with India's dal, India's chapati, including yesterday's chapati. So therefore, physical survived by Indian food. Mind is filled by Nalanda thought. Therefore, I describe myself as a son of India. And it seems to see that reporter understand, then no further sort of question like that. So therefore, now you are our master. We are messenger. On the level of messenger, we are making every effort. Now you are our boss. Now boss, including Indian sort of spiritual leaders or intellectuals, you are boss. So you should be more active promotion of this deeper human value. Not through prayer, not through few incense, not that way, but study. So that is my own sort of story. Time passes, the way of thinking. Firstly, the only Tibet and the Tibetan refugee. At the beginning, just a concern of my own survival. Then second fast, how to preserve. Now third fast, now how much we can serve, we can contribute for well-being of humanity. Next question? Oh.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
I've had the honor of listening to you several times, and every time I go away learning something very new. So I don't have a question, I have a statement, and I want you to elaborate on that. You often speak of environmental sustainability. If we go and look at the religions over time, Christianity is 2,000 years old, Islam is 1,600 years old, Hinduism is even older. We do not have concerns over environmental sustainability and questions such as this. For instance, I believe that religions that have come up pertain more to the period of the time that they are born. For instance, you have the horror of environmental environmental terror, a terror of flood, for instance, or an avalanche, for instance, but not a question of environmental preservation. And the real reason, I think, is that the questions of environment didn't arise in those days. Now, and that is why I also think that religions of that particular period do not air the concerns that concern us today. For instance, there is hardly question of legalizing of homosexuality. There is hardly any question of gender equality in most of these religions. So my concern is that a religion of a particular time is pertaining only to that period of history where the thinker of the period brings it on. So whether it is Muhammad 1,600 years ago or Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, the questions pertaining or the issues pertaining to that period of history were what was relevant, and that came down in those books. So finally, are religions limited to the period in which they were born? And therefore, if that is so, then these are incomplete and philosophical thought, and they need constant evolution and debate, which the leaders of those particular religions are not allowing.
저게 말봐. 그럼 동주시. 소르도 가사.
소르 추규 자만다 탈디스마 수수수 대체 대뒤기 내당다 저로 빠데 아니 지 납자다 저 성계송이 제마다 이 가서 댕상 내주 나는 매딩이한 디졸레 미시 소냐 말스.
Usually, I have the view, and also accordingly I expressing the all major world religious tradition, three aspects. One aspect is religion or Dharma. One aspect is philosophy. One aspect is, I don't know, culture or certain sort of a tradition. Now, first part, Dharma part, all major all religious tradition carry the importance of practice of love. All religions, whether theistic religion, non-theistic religion, all carry same message. If you follow your tradition, your belief sincerely, all have the sort of same potential. So nowadays, in the recent my visit America, I publicly, and also Europe, I publicly mentioned the sometimes media people, you see, the wording is Muslim terrorist. It's wrong. I saw one occasion the Buddhist terrorist in Burma. So Time magazine, so one cover picture on Buddhist monk and mentioned Buddhist terrorist. So similarly, the Muslim terrorist, I think, carry, I think, wrong
Impressions.
Wrong impression. So terrorist, whether Buddhist, background of Buddhist, or Christian, or Hindu, or Muslim, terrorist, but should not sort of kasure,
Associate.
combined with
Associate.
Muslim terrorist. So that creates impression. Whole the Muhammad's teaching or Islam is something negative. After 1 year, the September 11th sort of event, one sort of commemoration at Washington. Somehow I was there, so they also invited some function at the National Cathedral in Washington. So there I mentioned, due to some sort of mischievous people's activities, which background of their family background Muslim, due to that, whole Muslim sort of consider something negative is totally wrong. Some mischievous people everywhere, among the Buddhists, among the Tibetan Buddhists also there. I think some among the sort of follower of Buddha's time, some mischievous people, some mischievous monk there. So mischievous always there. They cannot represent the whole teaching. So some individual from Muslim community, some mischievous, they cannot sort of represent the whole teaching. So I told there. So since then, I come as a front to defend Islam. So religion is concerned, many Islam practitioners, wonderful. They say, if you create bloodshed, then reality no longer Islam practitioner. You should extend love towards entire creature of Allah. So, wonderful. Then, in philosophical field, there is big differences. Some say there is God, creator. Some say no creator. So there's fundamental differences. Since the Bishop Tutu, we become very, very close sort of friend. I really love him. I really respect him. So whenever we come together, always teasing each other. Whenever you see we met, he always say, mischievous Dalai Lama. Then also I written mischievous bishop. Wonderful person, wonderful person. And I think almost now last meeting, I think 2 years ago, right? About 2 years ago, at Dharmasala, in spite his physical weak and also illness, he come to Dharmasala. A few days discussion in front of camera. Now already some books already now published. So one occasion he mentioned, he as a Christian or as a believer, he ready go to heaven. Then he teased me, Dalai Lama go some different place. I think strictly speaking, Dalai Lama is non-believer. So go there. So this is different philosophical views. That is, then we should sort of raise question. What is the purpose of these different philosophy? Same purpose. To bring conviction about the value of love, compassion. For that, forgiveness, tolerance, contentment, self-discipline. So then no problem. Different medicine, same purpose to cure illness. You see, no reason, this medicine different, and quarrel. useless. So long, different medicine, you see, cure illness. And then also you say, I never say Buddhism is best. I never said. Because you see, best or not is according to the individual person. To this person, Buddhism is more suitable, more effective. So you say, Kasachuti, or best. Another person, you see, theistic religion is best because most effective. Like that. So the theistic religion, this very life created by God, just one life, this created by God, directly linked. And when we describe God, infinite love. So we are child of that sort of God, infinite love. So we must practice, we must follow. You see, God's sort of say, message of love. Very powerful. No need complicated philosophy. Wonderful. So different philosophy, no problem. You think all these different philosophy, same goal, and because even among Buddha's own sort of disciple, there are different mental disposition. Therefore, Buddha taught different philosophy. These different philosophy actually contradictory philosophy. So sometimes I jokingly say, telling people, Buddha, same teacher, taught contradictory philosophy. That does not mean Buddha's own mind not very clear. One day he taught this philosophy, then another occasion he taught another sort of philosophy. That does not mean Buddha's own mind not very clear. No. Nor he deliberately tried to create more confusion among his disciples. No. Buddha is compassionate and Kasudha, all-knowing. Right? Therefore, he deliberately taught different contradictory philosophy according the different people or disciple who have different mental disposition. So this we learned. Oh, we need a religion which based on the concept of creator. We really need. So therefore, see, philosophical field, no problem. Now the third part, culture or kareda, tradition. That part, I think because of the environment or the circumstances in the society. As some my friend is told me, one occasion in this country, animal sacrifice such an extent, you see, harming the farmers' economy. So such period, Jain master come. So because of the social sort of condition, that kind of situation, he particularly emphasizes vegetarianism, ahimsa. So soon after, I think after Jain master, about I think 30, 40 years, Buddha come. So also you see emphasis, you see, and some Buddhist teaching very much sort of emphasis vegetarianism. Some teaching not that much strict. So we have choice. Some Chinese Buddhist and also some Japanese Buddhist, very strict vegetarianism, wonderful. We Tibetan, I think we can also excuse our northern part of Tibet, no vegetation, no vegetable, no fruit, not like India. So therefore, their sort of life entirely depend on animal product. So, so this, and then I think the Muslim, you see, when Muhammad, you see, come, that area more or less nomad. So no proper sort of rule or proper law. So in Quran, he sort of detailed sort of mentioning about Sharia law. And then Judaism, under difficult circumstances, you see, they also, you see, because of the mentioning, eye to eye for eye, eye for eye, like that. And then the Jesus Christ is more emphasis. So as someone hit here, we should show this. So like that. So the circumstances, according circumstances, these religious master use a certain point emphasis. So now, society. So therefore, including Buddhism, when you see the teacher, you see, happen and start teaching, the society feudal system, no democracy. So some of the even Buddhist sort of was in the system. Although I think Buddhists, you see, Buddha, you see, they start the individual monk have because of the can ordain, but the ordination must carry a group of monk. That's sangha. He not give individual monk have the power to ordinate, ordination. So the one single person give ordination, that sort of authority kept by himself. Since Kashyapa Buddha, all those, so the
seven successors to the Buddha.
So then group monk. So there is hundreds of different actions which carried by sangha, all carried by group of monk, bhikshu, not one single bhikshu. So democratic principle there. So therefore, but somehow, you see, in Tibet case, I think eventually the Lama institution started. There was no Buddha's institution, no Nagarjuna's institution, no Arya Deva's institution, but we created individual Lama's institution. So that also, I think, some influence the feudal system. So like that. So therefore, that part, I think the circumstances of the society change. So certain cultural heritage, some habit develop at that period, different circumstances, different social sort of system. I think that part, I think we should change. What was necessary to serious consideration, some change. But religion, Dharma, no need change. Philosophy, no need change. The third part, I think from time to time, circumstances change, social system change, then I think we should think seriously this, like that. So now here, as far as Muslim is concerned, the Indian Muslim, including Ladakhi Muslim, I think the spirit of, plural concept, religion. There are many religions because of the circumstances. So Muslim, Indian Muslim, see, from their childhood, they already know there are different traditions. Whereas some Muslim country, or Malaysian Muslim, also is similar. There are a large number of Buddhists. Many Chinese, most of these Chinese are Buddhist. And some Indian as a Hindus. Then Indonesia also. Traditionally, there are a large number of Buddhists and many Chinese businessmen, these also Buddhist. So Muslim from such country, they already sort of, as they have the sort of view, or there are different traditions. Where some Arab countries, a little bit isolated, just the strong feeling of one truth, one religion. For individual concept of one truth, one religion is very relevant in order to keep your single-pointed faith. But in the terms of community, in the terms of society, that cannot go. Particularly modern time. You see that now world become much smaller. So information from different tradition, different religion. So in San Francisco, one my friend, one Sikh, American Sikh, you see the kasa,
with the turban,
all these things, and yellow sort of beard. When I first time see, little bit sort of strange, one American Westerner, and Sadaji sort of kasoda, correct, like that. So that's today's world. And also you see, I think around San Francisco or somewhere, some Zen masters, Japanese. So those follower of Zen master, even if the furnitures in their own room become like Japanese. That I think too much. They finally, you cannot change their face. So furniture's lifestyle, I think better to remain as an American, as a European. So also you see some Tibetan centers also, you see the whole atmosphere or whole sort of structure where they become like Tibetan. Then I think they should eat samba and butter tea. So therefore, cultural heritage, you see, there are differences. So that's my view. So the point is, Indian Muslim, I think, should take more active role for promoting of the religious harmony among Sunni and Shia. And like it's a so-called terrorist, you see, through military action, we never succeed. You can control one single person's body, but mind, fear, distrust, hatred cannot control. So only thing is reach out, make friendship. There was a very rough sort of emotion that should come down. But consider them also human brothers, sisters, and especially spiritual brothers, sisters. Only that way the sort of negative attitude reduce. That's the only way. So my own sort of was the experience. I never sort of use negative word to Chinese, even those communists. No. These also, their action is concerned, we oppose, we criticize. But still these are human beings. So our brothers, sisters. And also it's a Tibetan issue. Not one side victory, one side defeat, not that way. Mutually agreeable solution. So these all is our concept. Oh, we are same human being. And particularly, I very much impressed the spirit of European Union. I think yesterday I mentioned or not. So therefore, this the future of the world only that way. So therefore, now Great Britain, see, they different view. Okay, up to them. Otherwise, I think for long run, I always see expressing the spirit of European Union. Now, eventually, you see, with that spirit, eventually Russia joined European Union. And since a few years, you say, sometimes I express the NATO headquarters should shift to Moscow. Then the fear will reduce. You see, remain they and we, and prepare more weapon, more army, more problem, and economically also very wasteful. So only thing is, consider them human brothers, sisters. And no matter how sort of difficult it is, through patience, you see, you should reach out. So, because our stand, not seeking independence, so number of Chinese, including Liu Xiaobo, fully support. About, I think, last 4 years, we noticed about 1,000 articles wrote by Chinese. All 1,000 articles fully support about our way of approach. Very critical, their own government policy. So if we used to remain a strong feeling, we and they, and try to get back because of the victory our side and defeat other, then these things will never happen. So we're heavily interdependent. That's the reality. So therefore, Karsada, Karati, Genitively. Now I myself confused what I'm talking. So you see, the Indian Muslim, I think I already used to express to Karsa, Karsa Mugi, Pola Karsa, Kajpola Karsa. Ashmere, I know very well. I suggested, sometime back we met Dharamsala, so I suggested, I think like him, I think should organize some international Muslim conference. Then, if possible, invite some hardliner. And then try to cool down their emotions. That's the only way. So since many years, I just suggest the Indian government, the government of India should organize international religious conference. 1956, government of India is organized the conference of Buddhist world, international Buddhist world. So now India, I think time come, Indian government should organize the international religious conference. So if Indian government, you see, initiated, then I think the Pope certainly come, accept invitation. Then head of Russian Orthodox and some Arabs or Muslim leaders definitely come. And then not only just, you see, one occasion gathering and make some nice speech, not that way. That also is automatically come. But some scholars at some sort of secondary level or some sort of influential leaders come and let them discuss few days how to promote religious harmony. Then make arrangement, special arrangement to take pilgrimage, all, you see, different holy places. I started that practice in 1975 from Sunyata. You see, pilgrimage to mosque, church, and because of mandir, like that. And the last one, Sadaji's Sikh because of mandir samarve, Gurdwara. So that's the last. So after around sort of tea time, so the prasad, very delicious. Oh, Lord, because of source of blessing, mysterious way, practical way, really blessing. So I think India really can make, I think, significant contribution regarding promotion of religious harmony. So you yourself, you should practice these things, not just a political reason. Over 3,000 years, these, you see, habit already there. So now should be more active. What do you think? Audience, do you agree? Oh, now time for lunch. So thank you very much.